On a barren road, two battered boots grind through the dirt, dragging like they've been through hell and back. The traveler strides toward a colossal, battle-worn fortress of a city, Lumen. A dark-haired young man finally reached his goal, and the relief hit him like a wave. A city guard slams his hand up, stopping him cold, and barks, "What are you hauling in there?" The young adventurer flashes an innocent grin and shrugs like, "It's nothing, I just beat the monsters." Just a few days later, a desperate cry echoes outside the Adventurers Guild. A blonde girl drops to her knees and begs for medicine, her voice trembling with pure terror for her mother. The receptionist drops her gaze with a heavy, sorrowful look and right away offers her apologies. Chasing that armor flower is a brutal grind, because the reward is just one measly gold coin. If you want a different payment deal, you've got to set it up straight with the adventurer yourself. The girl clenches her nerves as a nearby adventurer casually spins a coin like he has all the time in the world. The whole guild hall has gone dead silent, like everyone's holding their breath, waiting for something to explode. At the table next to them, a woman watches the chaos unfold with a steady, quiet focus that says she's not just observing, she's taking everything in. She cuts in, voice sharp, desperate to yank her companion's attention. A woman in a pointed witch's hat lines in as her friend's worried whispers spill through the air. The witch leans in and tells them that even an A-ranker would stake their life to get that flower. She's sure of one thing: no one would step into a quest that dangerous with such effortless ease. Defeated, the blonde girl hangs her head and apologizes to the guild staff for putting them through all that trouble. Her shoulders sag and she spins to head for the exit, crushed, broken, and ready to leave the hall in despair. Her face tightens with resolve, and you can tell she won't back down ever. People in the crowd murmur that she looks like she's about to try the quest all by herself. A hand shoots out and yanks her to a stop just before she can slip away. With a steady voice, she steps forward and offers to take the dangerous quest for her. Roy, the dark-haired adventurer, flashes a gentle smile, and it freezes her in instant, stunned silence. Stunned, she can't stop wondering where this mysterious stranger really came from. Roy strides up to the receptionist, Alin, and officially accepts the quest. The girl stares at him in shock, asking if he's really, truly sure about that decision. Another adventurer sneers through clenched teeth, already sure the next body will be tossed onto the pile. Roy admits his F-rank has him doubting whether he's even the right guy for the mission. Glenn Lumen's boldest adventure kicks off, and it feels like the perfect mission made just for him. He lines in and reassures rookie Roy, swearing the mission is perfect for him. Sure of herself, Roy tells the girls, "Relax, I'll break everything down on the way." The young woman flashes a smile and introduces herself as Syria. Roy flashes her a warm smile and steps right in to introduce himself, like the start of something good. They tell you straight up, their destination is the brutal, perilous Great Magical Forest. As they stroll side by side, the two spark up upbeat small talk, quickly sizing each other up and getting acquainted. Saria lets out a huge breath of relief, because so far, no monsters have shown up. A jagged panel break slams onto the page, and suddenly the air turns ominous like something's about to go horribly wrong. Saria's voice drops into a heavy, somber tone as she tells him her mother's grave illness. An elixir brewed from armor flowers is her mother's last shred of hope for a cure. With a heavy, guilty breath, she finally admits she never realized just how badly her mother was truly suffering. Roy tells her straight up that her mother probably caught the illness on purpose just to spare her from worry. Saria remembers being a kid, quietly jamming the pendant away like it was a secret she couldn't let anyone find. She still feels that gut-punch panic and total devastation the moment she realizes she's lost it. After a whole night of searching, her mother finally stormed in, hunting her down. Her mother didn't lash out. She wrapped her in a fierce hug, shaking with relief that she was safe. Saria proudly declares, "I'm my mom's treasure now," and vows she'll charge straight into any danger that comes for her. Roy leans in and listens to her heartfelt story like he's truly felt every word before, his expression full of deep understanding. He leans in and promises her this: if she grabs onto that kind of drive, she'll hunt down the cure. Saria gazes at him with a warm, thankful smile. Her trust has just been reborn. She can't believe it, but his calm, steady demeanor somehow feels like a warm shield. Roy slams on the brakes, sensing a hidden threat looming right up ahead. Saria's about to react. His sudden stop hits her like a punch, and her eyes blow wide with shock. A monstrous, horned bear bursts out of the trees, shaking everything with a deafening growl. She's locked in place with pure terror, staring around like, where did that beast even come from? A sudden memory slams into place, a wild tale about a blood-drinking bear lurking in this very forest. Her face drains of color as the terrifying legend hits her, and she realizes it's real. Roy snapped his sword through the air in a blur, and his blade cut the monster's neck wide open. Saria's eyes blew wide with pure disbelief as his impossible speed tore past her in an instant. Roy's face hardens into a cold, deadly focus the instant he lands the blow. That giant mad bear slams into the ground and gets wiped out on the spot. He smoothly slides his sword back into its sheath, like he's got no time for the blood-drinking ceremony. Saria crouches on the ground, eyes sharp, sensing another presence closing in nearby. He jabs a finger at the thicket and leans in, asking if she can spot the nest hidden in there. Saria stared in disbelief and blurted out that she's never seen anyone this strong in her life. Roy snaps his gaze away, cheeks burning as her praise hits him hard. He scratches his cheek, and even then, that quiet humility spills out like it's second nature. He tries to play it cool, brushing off his insane power like it was nothing, just some pathetic monster. He swears an F-ranker like him could never, ever beat the real mad bear. Saria stares at him, caught between deep confusion and a soft, skeptical doubt. She points out with a sharp edge to her voice that he's way too experienced to be a true beginner. She can't believe the guild ignored that experience altogether. Roy tells everyone he only battles monsters so weak he can crush them solo. Right as he starts talking, a goblin-looking monster shoots forward from behind and lunges straight for him. Without even glancing over, he snaps out a casual backhand slash, and the thing drops dead. With zero stress, he points the finger at his own failure to detect the ambush. With a blazing grin, he urges Saria to keep pushing forward, no stopping now. Still rattled, Saria steadies herself and quickly nods, trust surges, and she agrees to follow him. Later, Roy casually snaps into action, effortlessly deflecting a whole swarm of giant worms like it's nothing. They keep hunting, squeezing each other's hands as they push deeper into the thick, shadowy forest. He steadies her step by step across a shaky log bridge, high over a bottomless chasm. At last, their journey bursts into a bright sunlit clearing, and right in the middle stands one perfect flower. Saria's eyes flare with hope as she blurts it out, pointing at it like it's her lifeline. That rainbow-colored blossom shines like it's dripping magic, glowing softly, like it's about to cast a spell. Roy tells her this is the legendary flower she's been hunting for. With a bright, encouraging grin, he tells her to pick herself. She lunges for it, hope blazing in her chest for her mother's recovery. Without a single warning, a colossal force crashes down and pins her to the spot. A cruel voice sneers at her for barging into its realm, and right then, a colossal beast roars into view. Saria snapped her head left and right in panic, desperately yelling Roy's name over and over. Her heart slams in her chest as she realizes the monster is talking straight into her mind. A colossal horned tiger steps into view, and pure raw power blasts off it like a thunderclap. Her mind blares an all-out alarm, run, run, run from that terrifying thing. In a rush of panic, she desperately whispers for her mother, and for Roy too. The tiger just laughs to itself, thinking that a tiny little girl is way too small a prize to bother killing. Roy's old words of encouragement spark in her mind, and a fresh flicker of strength surges through her. Defiance explodes in her chest, and she decides, no running, not today. She clenches her fist and steels herself, refusing to budge an inch. Her fear snaps into fury, and she bellows the reason she came in the first place. The horned tiger's eyes go wide, completely stunned by the sudden spike in her courage. That huge horned tiger sets up a deadly game, all revolving around the amour flower. One single tear slips down the young woman's determined face, heavy as a promise. She's left speechless as the beast nods and gives her the go-ahead to claim the precious flower. With a sly smirk, the creature confesses that it's latched onto her spirit like it's found its favorite thing. The rules are this: if she gets out of that forest, she wins. With fresh hope blazing in her chest, she grabs the challenge head-on and plucks the flower like fate is daring her back. As soon as the beast kicks off its 10-second countdown, she bolts, no hesitation, just pure escape. Her mind is all on one thing, the flower in her hands, and the sick mother it's meant to save. Tears spill down her cheeks as she steels her resolve to win, for Roy's sake. A tight close-up locks onto the beast's horrifying face as it keeps counting, like it's laughing with every beat. Her thoughts snap straight to Roy, because he's the only one who'd actually step in and help. When the count hits 9, her foot suddenly snags on a hidden, unseen stretch of path. She cries out in agony, slams hard onto the ground, and doesn't let go of the flower. Her drop slams the ground so hard that dust erupts into the air like a shockwave. Debris explodes around her as she slams into the forest floor with a sickening thud. Meanwhile, Floor storms up to Glenn, unleashing pure fury because he let them go straight to the beast's domain. Glendies aches with longing, while Agnes drags out the heartbreaking story of how an A-rank party got wiped out. He snaps the truth out. Only one adventurer made it out alive, and the poor guy is never the same again. Fleur, finally getting how deadly this really is, can't stop questioning Glenn's choice all over again. Agnes keeps her voice steady, reassuring Fleur with total confidence that it'll all be fine. She points out that Roy took down those monsters all by himself, one-man wrecking crew, no help needed. Another party member freezes in shock because they just realize they can't take down even a single enemy by themselves. Fleur tries to mask her shock with a shaky, nervous smile that looks like it might crack any second. A heavy, awkward silence crashes over the adventurers like a sudden wave. A young girl stares in shock, wondering how someone ranked in F could possibly wield power like that. Glenn finally drops the bombshell. Roy didn't even count a single experience point from his kills. He straight up admits the guild is totally clueless about Roy's origins. Glenn takes a sip from his mug and admits he's got a few uncertain guesses. People are already speculating that Roy could wipe out a monster with ease, maybe even take down the ruler himself. Deep in the forest, Saria screams Roy's name as the monster finally drops dead. Roy's face fills the screen, eyes locked in, as he readies his magic for what comes next. A warm, gentle glow spills from his hand and seals the fresh cut on Saria's cheek. Saria bursts into tears and joy, confirming with a shaky voice that Roy is totally okay. Staring at her fully healed face, she can't help but wonder, did he use healing magic on her? Roy's face twists with remorse as he leans in and delivers a heartfelt apology to her. Saria stared, hand pressed to her cheek, feeling his deep concern hit her right in the heart. He winces with guilt, apologizing to himself for failing to shield that woman from harm. A crushing dark aura bursts out of him, and just like that, his whole demeanor flips. He bursts into action, throwing his body in front of Saria as he charges up a devastating attack. His sword swings, and the impact blasts out a brutal shockwave that rips the earth apart. The ruler of the West is left reeling. He admits it's been years since anyone last even so much as scratched it. Roy grumbles that monsters who can talk always act like they own the world. Saria is left totally baffled when he drops the word again. The beast is buzzing with excitement, roaring for Roy like, "Don't stop, entertain me some more." As the creature barrels toward him, Roy's face turns ice gold, and his focus locks in like a target. He whips his head over his shoulder and snaps a sharp command, "Silence." He unleashes a brutal, devastating attack, and Saria can't help wondering if he's actually the hero. The battered beast lifts its head and demands the powerful human's name. Roy calmly slid his sword back into its sheath, and that brutal battle aura vanished in an instant. He strikes a cocky pose and blurts out that he's just a run-of-the-mill, F-ranked adventurer. The defeated beast goes stone-cold silent because it can't fathom how any of this could possibly be true. Sword finally sheathed, he spins around and shouts Saria's name at the top of his lungs. A warm, gentle smile blooms back on his face as he suggests they head home. Saria beams and nods along, and just like that, the chronicle of the strongest F-ranker kicks off. A year earlier, Roy was locked with the Demon Lord Extermination Party, but when the battle hit, he fought solo. In a roaring military camp, the soldiers leaned in and gossiped, saying he'd crushed the Arachne. He totally blindsided them by asking, dead serious, if they were talking about him. The soldiers blurted out shaky denials, then bolted away from him before the truth could catch up. He swallowed his pride and accepted he'd be stuck alone, convinced his inexperience was the reason everyone else walked off. In that dream, he shook with doubt and demanded answers. Who was he really fighting for, and what was he even meant to be? He shoots upright with a jolt, his mind still drowning in nightmare-thick fog. He jolts upright and his eyes sweep the unfamiliar room, too polished, too perfect to be his. A jolt of realization hits him, because suddenly he remembers he's in Lumen. He stays planted on the bed, eyes locked on a ribbon sitting on the nightstand. A tight close-up dives into the ribbon's jewels, shining with delicate, breathtaking detail. His face turns grim as he frantically tries to stitch the recent events together in his mind. He swings his legs over the side of the bed and drops his bare feet onto the floor. He steps outside and freezes when he realizes Lumen isn't a small place at all. It's a massive, non-stop city roaring with life. He'd pictured some peaceful little countryside village, but what he got was this loud, booming metropolis. He stares at the cash from his last hunt and thinks, man, this money means I can go for totally different endings. A flashback cuts in, Saria's voice rings out as she urges him to trade his monster parts for hard cash. In another flashback, Saria grabs his attention and demands he bring her the flowers back. He remembers he only took the quest because she'd been so damn kind to him. At the guild, he slams down the massive fang of a 70-foot tiger for everyone to see. A guild member nods and confirms it. Yep, the powerful ruler of the West. Glenn finally shows up, and his jaw drops at the massive fang pulled from a rare monster. Roy strolls through town and suddenly decides he has to thank Saria for that advice. Then his mind snapped to her mother. He couldn't stop worrying about whether she'd be all right. Lost in his own thoughts, he slams into a young woman, then whips his hands out and catches her just before she hits the ground. He shoots out a fast apology, grabbing the blame for the accident like it's his fault. He blurts out her name, and shock slams him when he realizes it, Saria. She stares up at him just as stunned and blurts out his name. Roy flashes her a warm smile and slips out the truth. He'd been thinking about her the whole time. Saria's cheeks warm up, but his words hit her heart in the best possible way. He blurts out that he's been stuck wondering how her mom's doing. Saria grabs his hand and begs him to come with her to meet her mother. She blurts out that they're rushing straight to the doctor's to grab the Allmoreflower medicine. At the clinic, an intimidating man steps forward, spear in hand, like he owns the place. A grim man with a dark cloud around him steps up and declares, "I've got her medicine." Roy freezes in shock, staring at this terrifying guy, and can't believe he might be the doctor. Saria cuts in to explain, Jerome isn't just some random guy, he's the doctor's guard. Roy breaks the ice with a sharp joke about doctors and their scalpels, then flashes a grin and introduces himself as the adventurer who got things done. Jerome's face tightens as he leans in and demands to know Roy's adventurer rank. Roy shoots back with a calm smirk, "Yeah, I'm F rank." Jerome's fury erupts. He can't wrap his head around the fact that some F rank could take out the ruler. Saria cuts in, telling everyone Roy is here because he couldn't stop worrying. Jerome grumbles that every adventurer is just a thug with better clothes. Saria brightens her face as she steps in front of Roy, smiling fiercely while insisting he's a good person. Jerome stares down at Roy, and the suspicion still burns in his eyes. After that tense second, he finally gives in and lets them slip inside. Saria throws her support behind Roy, but Jerome snaps in with a razor-sharp warning that leaves the young man freezing. Jerome, the intimidating guard, shuts Roy down and warns him, "Don't you dare cause a single bit of trouble on my watch." Roy flashes a confident grin and tells the guard, flat out, he has zero plans to do it. Inside the clinic, a warm-hearted doctor welcomed Roy, the guy who tracked down the Amore flower. He grabs Roy's hands and blurts out, stunned, "How am I even supposed to thank you enough?" The doctor's face lights up as he says it straight. Nothing compares to the joy of saving Saria's mother. Staring at the statue, Sari swore that Roy had been steered by the goddess herself. The doctor declares, "I'll get the medicine," then vanishes straight into a back room. As Roy walks out, Saria leans in and tells him the doctor has been keeping the whole town alive with care ever since she was a kid. She remembers how he treated her fatherless family with kindness, and that's exactly what made this cure possible. The doctor's footsteps clack as he rushes back, and Saria hears him announce the medicine has arrived. He raises an ornate vial and declares it's the medicine that can heal her mother. Overwhelmed with joy, Saria clutches the vial to her chest and thanks him with every ounce of her heart. Roy's face hardens into deep, worried focus as he stares at the vial, doubts swirling fast. He freezes for a split second, then blurts out his words, crashing the cheerful moment like a sudden storm. Saria stared at him with worry blazing in her eyes, then demanded to know what on earth was going on. Roy jabs a finger at the vial, eyes locked and steady, and starts laying out his suspicion like he's calling it out for real. Doctors stiffen and snap back, demanding to know if Roy's really calling their medicine a fake. Roy rubs the back of his head, blurted out an apology for his sudden attitude, but he refuses to back down on what he noticed. He reveals the real amber flower he found, and it's glowing with a wild rainbow aura like it's got its own magic in it. Staring at the vial, he snaps that he can't feel that same sharp aura coming off it. He's adamant Saria's mom can't be healed unless they get the exact right medicine. Jerome clenches his spear until his knuckles whiten, and his simmering rage suddenly erupts. He yanks Roy by the collar and rages that he's just whining to squeeze out more money. A patient can't shake the question, Could the doctor they have trusted for years really be lying? Jerome scoffs at their naivete and says, straight up, that plenty of truly bad people are already out there. Saria fires back with fierce conviction, claiming Roy would never, ever do something like that. Roy, totally flustered, blurts out, "Whoa, no, I'm not blaming anyone for anything." The doctor slaps on a wounded face and cries that he truly thought he could trust Roy. Roy demands to get inside the storage room himself, determined to prove his suspicions are real. He swears he can feel the real Amour flower aura pulsing from deep inside it. The doctor shuts it down cold, saying only he's allowed anywhere near the medicine storage. Roy insists he has to double-check everything so no other patients get accidentally mixed up. Jerome slams into his path and snarls at the young man to step back, right now. Roy's face snaps into perfect calm as Jerome winds up to strike. Jerome hurls his massive spear with pure brute force, and Roy doesn't even flinch. Saria panics and scrambles for an answer, terrified that she'll never find a way to stop the conflict from exploding even more. Jerome freezes at Roy's unnatural calm, and suddenly realizes this is both wildly intriguing and dangerously on the edge. Roy locks onto his opening and smashes the idea into action. He can trigger the door's anti-theft alarm. A bone-chilling screech tears through the clinic, screaming out into the street like a warning. Saria blasts everyone with a shout to calm down, then tells them she's already called the guards. Roy nods and agrees without hesitation, like her plan is the perfect way to finally slam the door on all this. The doctor snaps, calling out to Jerome, and Jerome whips around in shock at the sharp way his master speaks. The doctor's faces crumple as he barks an order, "Kill them both before the guards even get here." Saria gapes in pure terror, and through her trembling lips, she whispers the doctor's name like she can't believe what she's seeing. Her eyes go wide as the full, brutal truth of his betrayal finally crashes in. Jerome smirks with savage glee, leaning in to ask, almost eagerly, if he's the one who gets to kill them. The doctor spins a cover story, insisting they were dragged into a fight with a hostage taker against their will. He's getting ready to claim that an evil criminal and the victim both died in the fight. He brushes off Saria's credibility like it's nothing, because deep down, he's convinced nobody will ever trust an F-rank's companion. Saria blurts the doctor's name again, her face twisted with betrayal and pure, helpless confusion. Roy's eyes squeezed into razor-thin slits, and pure silent fury ignited in him the moment the doctor's brutal words hit. Jerome screams a battle cry and rockets forward, his spear spinning through the air like pure, deadly lightning. Just as the attack is about to land, guards rush in out of nowhere, fast, sudden, and totally cutting it off. Jerome's face twists into pure shock and furious frustration when his plan gets completely wrecked. An arrow slams into one of the doctor's accomplices with a brutal, final thud. One of the accomplices lets out a brutal scream as the guards swiftly slam him down. The guard's brutal intervention hits like a storm, and the third accomplice drops limp, utterly defeated. Roy watches with a grim, satisfied look as he lets the twist hit and steps right into it. He yanks his sword free, and that razor-sharp asterisk clink makes the doctor, already terrified, start trembling with pure dread. Roy stands ringed in raw power, then barks his last command at the doctor to get ready. The doctor's stuck like a statue, his whole body trembling nonstop with pure, gut-wrenching terror. He drops to the ground with a brutal thud, begging someone, anyone, to help him. The gorgeous Amore flower rests in a vase, silently watching every grim moment unfold. The doctor clenches his hands so tight they ache, begging a goddess with desperate prayers to save his life. The guards swoop in and grab the doctor and his last accomplice. Just like that, their whole plan collapses. Out on the streets, Roy clocks it. Those same guild adventurers aren't just out chasing quests, they're patrolling as the city's guards too. Saria can't believe it. She was totally played by that doctor, and the shock hits her like a wave. She can't ignore the sting. She was nothing but a pawn, shoved into play just to deliver the flower to him. Betrayed to the bone, she breaks down in tears, staring ahead like, how am I ever supposed to face my own mother? Roy drops to the moment with an apology, realizing his methods might have been way too extreme for what he was dealing with. Saria wipes her tears away and looks up in shock, totally thrown off by his sudden apology. She's adamant it's his fault, then pushes for them to ditch this hospital and rush her mother to a new one. She trails off, wrestling with this fresh nightmare, the confiscated medicine. Roy meets her gaze with burning sincerity, asking if she'll let him diagnose her mother. As they roll up to the Luna Inn, he leans in and says he might actually be able to help. Inside, Saria pounds on her mother's door and loudly announces, "I'm back." The inn's front desk sits eerily silent and empty, like it's hiding the chaos brewing behind the doors. Syria flings the door open and calls out that she's stepping inside. Her eyes bulge with pure terror as the shocking scene slams into her. Her mother crumpled to the floor and Syria panicked, begging her, "Please don't leave me." She bolts to her mother's side, choking on tears as she screams her name in total panic. Her mother's face shines with sweat as she pants hard, wheezing through pure agony. Syria bursts out screaming her mother's name again, and her face twists into raw, gut-wrenching desperation. Roy gently steadies Syria with a reassuring hand on her shoulder, his face calm, his focus razor-sharp. He whips around and reassures the broken-hearted Syria, "Hand it all over, he's got everything under control." Syria gazed up at him, tears spilling, and all her last shred of hope pinned to him alone. They lay her mother onto the bed, and Roy clenches his resolve, ready to unleash his healing magic. He shuts his eyes, and with total focus, a blazing burst of healing energy erupts like pure light. The deep pain lines on her mother's face ease out as she stirs awake, letting out a soft, gentle sigh. Syria hurls herself into her healed mother's arms, while Roy slips in quietly, confirming the recovery is finally fully done. Syria turns toward Roy, and pure, overwhelming gratitude floods her face. Tears of pure joy streamed down her face as she grabbed his hands and thanked him with her whole heart for saving her mother. That tiny moment of gratitude punches Roy straight in the chest, dragging up a painful memory from a year ago. He clings to the memory of battling solo, not even realizing who or what he was truly fighting for. Back in the present, he presses a hand to his chest, and a soft smile blooms across his face. He admits it like, for the first time, he finally feels he served a real purpose for someone. Syria's mother beams at him with warmth, thanking him for everything he's done for her daughter. Syria pushes Roy to stay the night, and the shocking part is how fast his surprise hits. She begs him, "Don't refuse, please," and even though he fights it, he finally gives in and accepts their generous hospitality. A mysterious figure wearing a tiara digs in, insists on paying every last bit, and refuses to let anyone offer their service for free. In the glow of a brightly lit interior, a mysterious cloaked figure stands still, staring into the shadows like it's waiting for something to happen. In a gut-wrenching nightmare, two of Roy's friends lunge toward him with faces twisted in pure terror. Dark-haired young woman trembles and whispers his real name, Saya, while tears streak down her face. Her eyes blow wide with pure terror as a dark, blood-like drop splashes across her cheek. Her vision slams to a stop as she offers one last, gut-wrenching apology, then she vanishes from sight. Roy jolts upright in bed, gasping hard, and the nightmare's leftovers still cling to his mind. A brutal nightmare slams into him, snapping him fully awake as a terrified, gasping breath bursts out of his chest. Outside his window, cheerful bird chirps kick the new day into gear like the world just hit play. His hand, still shaking like it's afraid, settles on the bed beside a jewel-bright hair ribbon he knows by heart. He grips the ribbon like it's his lifeline, whispering Luna's name into the hushed room. Stepping out of his room, Roy's face twists into a grim, heavy look as he gets ready to leave the inn. He's left reeling, stunned to see Syria looking so healthy and buzzing with energy. Beaming, Syria stands amid a sea of flowers, clutching a mop, and asks with bright excitement if he's about to head out. He confirms he's headed to the guild, and she beams, saying the inn is ready to reopen. She looks Roy straight in the eye and thanks him with all her heart, swearing her full recovery is thanks to the insane healing magic he unleashed. Right then, her mom swoops in with a laundry basket in hand, smiling warmly like everything's going to be okay. She flashes a brave smile at the panicked Syria, insisting she's perfectly fine, then gently tells her daughter to stop pushing herself so hard. Roy pauses and replays his master's warning in his head, because that kind of powerful healing magic doesn't just heal you, it leaves a cost behind. He decides to corner them and ask what's in the medicine the doctor cooked up for her. With a careful breath, he asks his question, praying it won't set them off. He straight up demanded, "Who out there could be nursing a grudge against us?" Syria's mother shuts her eyes tight, searching her mind for an enemy, but nothing specific comes to her. Roy just stood there, sweat beading on his brow, feeling wildly awkward as he asked. Syria says his master would surely have the answer, and Roy immediately blurts out an apology for even asking. He figures his legendary magician master would have the answer, but it crushes him. She's miles and miles away. Roy spills his big plan to dig into the doctor and the medicine at the guild. Syria lights up and praises his magic, but he just shrugs it off and gives all the credit to his master's lessons. Two women send him off with warm wishes, then press the warning into his hands, "Be careful out there. as he heads away. As Roy strides through the town, he's so lost in his own thoughts that the street noise barely registers, like it's whispering past him. He clocks it instantly. The town square is packed to the brim and roaring, with way more energy than it ever has. When he spots the decorations getting hung up, he immediately knows a festival is being planned. Before long, he bursts up to the towering, Grand Adventurers Guild, so big and stately it practically dares him to enter. At the reception desk, he leans in to the guild worker Aline and asks her for a favor. Aline snapped her eyes up from her work and asked if his request was about the medicine. Roy can't quite hide it. She already looks like she knows exactly what he's here to talk about. Sensing this was delicate, Elaine guided him straight into a quiet, perfectly furnished room. Inside, Roy shoots a nervous glance and asks if he can finally start his inquiry. Aline leans in and tells him her superiors have given her the green light to fill him in on everything. He scratches his head, grinning, pleased as punch, but blushing at the same time because the guild actually trusts him. She kicks off her report by slamming down the test results, proving the doctor's fake medicine isn't what he claimed. A vial shatters, its pieces spell out the truth. That medicine was really a curse-release drug all along. Roy grabbed her back and smirked. She knew exactly what he'd been suspecting all along. Aline reveals that the moment they realized the medicine worked, guilt slammed them straight into the end. By the time their agent finally showed up, Roy had already unleashed the curse himself. He confirms it. He knew someone was watching him, and his gut screams it's a guild operative. Aline's eyes widen and she blurts out, "Wait, you really clocked that someone was watching you?" Roy then lays out his theory about the criminal's motive. This wasn't personal at all, it was straight-up profit. She shoots down his plan on the spot, telling him the medicine would cost a fortune, and the scheme can't even touch that price. A chilling image of a skeletal mage flashes, hammering home the truth. This curse wasn't just hard, it was brutally difficult magic. Roy remembers how his master taught him one simple way to break that curse. Aline smirks and the proof lands. His master's wild, unconventional knowledge was dead on. Then she braces herself to lay out the next moves in the official investigation. A map spells it out. Those culprits are getting shipped from Lumen Strait to the Guild HQ in Claris. He doubts how bad it really is, but she cuts in and swears the higher-ups have seized full control. Roy's jaw dropped when he realized the guard, Jerome, wasn't just a soldier, he was an A-rank adventurer. Aline makes it crystal clear, his high rank doesn't just come from raw fighting power, it takes his whole set of abilities into account. Roy demands answers. How could a trusted adventurer turn into a criminal's accomplice? She admits that HQ hasn't spilled a single detail about the motive to her yet. He clenches his teeth in pure frustration, wishing he could have dragged the truth out of the mystery himself. Aline clocks the danger on the spot. He's terrified for Saria and her mom's safety. She leans in and reassures him. Turns out the guild has beefed up the guards around the inn. Right before he heads out, she makes him a promise. She'll message him the moment the transport finally kicks off. As soon as he's gone, Aline stares after him down the hall, and her smile drops hard into something grim. She fumes inward, knowing the bigwigs back at headquarters are about to wreck everything. Roy's back fills your view. His shoulders sag under a crushing weight, while he has no clue the bigger plot is already in motion behind him. A secret order pounds inside her skull. Don't let him ever figure out just how powerful he really is. She can't believe it. Leadership treats the hero like a threat and cowers more at him than they ever do at the Demon Lord. Her expression turns steely as grim determination locks in, and she braces for the brutal road ahead. She can't stop thinking, how long can Roy keep his real form buried while he barrels through all these wild, instinct-driven adventures? Back in the guild hall, Roy looked at his shrinking pride and realized he had to level up from being an F-ranker. He stares at the quest board and feels his hope crash as it's nearly empty for the day. A cheerful voice suddenly shouted his name, yanking him out of his own thoughts. He whips around and there's Glenn and the Crimson Lions, and they greet him with open arms. Glenn fires off a question, "Are you looking for work?" and Roy admits his quest has been a total dead end. Glenn tells everyone the reason there aren't any quests right now. This town is going all in to prepare for the festival. With a cheeky grin, Glenn yanks Roy in close and tells him to stick with his big bro for the job. The crew trudges across a jagged, rocky wasteland, chasing monsters and hunting them down for capture on their quest. A party member blurts out that it's a straight order from the guild, not some pointless extermination. Roy quickly realizes they've got to grab live samples, because only then can they truly study how that forest's ecology keeps shifting. He pauses and really weighs the brutal challenge of catching monsters alive instead of just ending them. A voice cuts in and tells them, that's exactly why two brand new members have just joined your team for this mission. A sharp-eyed young guy and girl step forward and blaze, we're Luca and Luce, D-rank couriers. Roy is totally thrown off by the title, staring at it like, wait, what does a courier even do inside a party? A diagram lays it all out. Their special job is to slice open the captured monsters and move them on. The party's sorceress leans in and tells them these aren't ordinary messengers, they're special couriers, and that explanation instantly hooks Roy. Glenn locks onto their very first target and orders the couriers to prove what makes their skills so damn special. Right in the field, a bizarre three-eyed rabbit with feathered wings swoops into view before their eyes. Luce spots the feather rabbit and instantly declares it the perfect warm-up creature for them to cuddle up with. The party's sorceress flashes a playful grin and beckons Roy to stick around for her demonstration. The rabbit's mood flips in an instant, its face twisting into a vicious, aggressive snarl. Glenn drives his massive great sword into the ground, not striking, just glaring like a warning the creature can't ignore. The tiny monster freezes for a heartbeat, then bolts like pure terror just grabbed it by the soul. Glenn's scorching, unbreakable stare hits the creature like a death sentence, so it bolts for its life without looking back. The sorceress erupts into a giggle at what she sees, and Roy shoots Glenn a comment about that terrifying scowl. The rabbit lets out a terrified squeak as it feels that overwhelming power bearing down on it. With a snap of movement, the party's rogue whips out a volley of throwing knives and hurls them fast like a blur. Knives slam into the rabbit's wings and feet, pinning it to the earth so it can't move. The creature is locked in place, its limbs crushed down as those perfectly aimed blades pin it to the spot. With a creepy grin, Luce tells the creature it'll stay eternally beautiful, no strings, just icy promises. A young man with braided hair lines in and tells his target, promising it eternal beauty. With his female companion at his side, he traps the winged rabbit in a sparkling sphere. Roy stares, jaw dropped, convinced it's some kind of sealing magic, because he feels zero power in himself. Agnes catches how razor-sharp his perception is, then flashes a grin and reminds him, her magic talent isn't just luck. Luce grins and lays out their powers like it's nothing, because these abilities were born in them from the very start. Agnes shoots him a serious look and says straight up, normal magic won't stand a chance against monsters that strong. A massive, jaw-dropping illustration shows their power, and people swear it can seal dragons away forever. Agnes shuts it down fast. Yeah, it's only a rumor, because their power has tight, unforgiving limits. The two couriers snap their unreadable stares straight at Roy. Together, they say it like a warning. He's a seriously strange guy. Roy just stares, thrown for a loop by their blunt, way too weird comment. He keeps wondering, did he say something weird that set them off? Agnes can't believe it. She demands answers about why that unstoppable duo is stuck at D-rank in the guild. The couriers step up and say they're not regular party members at all. They only tag along once in a while. Luce calls them parasites, because all they ever do is haul monsters around, and they don't lift a finger to fight. That brutal label visibly rattles Roy, and he mutters that it feels absolutely brutal. That word, parasites, hits him like a punch, dragging up a painful, throbbing memory he can't escape. Agnes watches, her heart aching with empathy, and nods like, yeah, that name is totally absurd. Fleur realizes the guild's standards are so cryptic that anyone who isn't trained to fight can't make heads or tails of them. Roy admitted that leveling up isn't just about throwing hands. Sometimes it's about what you learn when you're not in a fight. Glenn's sharp, serious voice slices through the noise, and he commands everyone to shut up right now. Their party now slams up to the gloomy entrance of the great magical forest, where the shadows feel like they're watching back. Fleur can't shake her usual unease, but Agnes leans in and points out something worse. Bigger monsters are lurking deeper inside. Roy whips around to Agnes, demanding to know if she's really sure about how dangerous this is. His eyes snap wide with pure terror as he senses danger closing in right now. Agnes starts to explain, right away, that the entrance area is normally the safest part. She's cut it loose, and a brutal wave of power tears through the air. A colossal, horned mad bear bursts out of the trees with a thunderous growl that shakes the air. Glenn panics blared. It's way too early to go up against a monster like that. A fresh challenger named Isaiah bursts into the clearing, screaming with pure, unshakable determination. His eyes widen for a split second when the beast shows up out of nowhere. He shouts at Glenn's party, then hurls a smoke bomb at the bear. Luce and Ryuka, his companions, couldn't believe it, Total shock hit them when that unexpected battle erupted. A monstrous shadow eater tears up from the earth behind Isaiah's group, and the ground itself feels like it's about to swallow them. The mad bear growls with pure menace, muscles tensing as it barrels in to smash Glenn's party to pieces. The shadow eater rumbles too, locking eyes with Isaiah and his crew as the tension snaps. Glenn's expression hardens with pure determination as he steps up and takes control of everything. He orders Roy's crew to deal with the shadow eater while his party slips away with the bear. Agnes lunges forward and announces, loud and fearless, "I'm taking the first hit." She swiftly snaps together a tight handful of razor-sharp throwing knives, ready to unleash her attack. Knives streak through the air with deadly precision, pinning the ground all around the beast. Fleur blasts out a brutal torrent of black fire, swallowing the mad bear whole. Glenn bursts into a ferocious battle cry, winding up for a devastating strike. He slams his massive sword down and carves a deadly line straight into the burning monster. Ryuka stares them down and confirms it. This thing is a shadow eater, and one touch from it means death. They argue it's unstoppable, until someone spots the weak spot. If you can smash its hidden core, it finally falls. Isaiah grins and tells them, "Let's take it so my friends can power up." Ryuka's jaw drops as she wonders if the rumor about Isaiah being a hero is actually real. Luce reels in stunned silence, because no sane adventurer would ever make a claim like that. Isaiah calmly lays out his plan to shatter the monster's barrier for all of them. Luce bites down on her fear, agrees to the plan, and gets herself ready to unleash her special ability. Isaiah rockets forward, blasting up a cloud of dirt as he sprints straight at the creature. The shadow eater snarls back, snapping a swarm of dark tendrils straight at its opponent. He slips through the chaos like a ghost, dodging a deadly storm of shadowy attacks. He thrusts his hand forward and wipes out the tendrils with crackling bursts of blinding light. He crashes into the colossal darkness, hacking through it with a ferocious swing of his sword. One razor-fast tendril whips past his defenses with a sharp, slicing snap. Ruka stares in disbelief at Isaiah's raw strength and pushes Luz to surge in and make the capture. Luce barrels ahead, her boots splashing through the soggy forest floor. The air crackles with dark energy as she rockets toward the creature. Ryuka jolts out of nowhere and screams her name in pure panic. Isaiah snaps his head around, and a wave of pure shock slams across his face. Luce's eyes widen in terror as a shadow tendril rams into her leg, pinning her with brutal force. Panic slams through her as the darkness oozes out of the wound and swallows her thoughts. A memory flashes back, her and Ryuka's kids, formed through their shared power. She remembers when their rare gift was finally treasured by the whole village. That calm shattered the moment a monster smashed into their home. They unleash their power, snatch the monster out of the chaos, and rescue the village at the last second. Then the villagers turned cold, staring at them with a creepy terror that made the air feel wrong. Even their own parents spat the words, "freaks" and "demon children," right in their faces. Crushed by the constant rejection, they tore out of town and threw themselves into the life of adventurers. But other adventurers sneered at them, calling them blood-sucking parasites who couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag. The guild swore it trusted them, but it kept slamming their progress, never letting them reach C rank or anything higher. In a brutal world, they finally understood the only safe thing they'd ever have was each other. As darkness swallows her whole, she finally accepts the heartbreaking fate waiting in her final breath. Ruka shrieks her name and lunges forward, reaching out with pure desperation. Luce whispered his name, her voice cracking with one last, heartbreaking apology. She's apologizing for what she's about to put herself through. In the monster's gleaming eye, Isaiah stares back and says, "I should be the one apologizing." Luce's face turns dead straight, tears spilling as she gets dragged into the pitch-black darkness. One single tear slips out as her eye shuts tight, and she finally gives in. Suddenly, the shadow tendrils quit, and she crumples to her knees, staring in pure confusion. Isaiah swings his blade, and it creaks and splinters under the sheer, unstoppable power exploding from his hands. He shoots out a sharp pain grunt, like every ounce of effort is breaking him down. His eyes blaze white, pure rage burning through him like a storm. He slams his sword into a demonic version of himself, right inside his own mind. Their blades slam together, and a blinding flash erupts like lightning. The Shadow Eater screams one last piercing shriek of pure agony. Ryuka stares at Roy and realizes he's changed. His very form is splintering under a surge of overwhelming power. With a blinding roar, the creature explodes into countless shattering fragments. Glenn's party bursts in and demands, "Tell me, are you all okay after that battle?" Glenn freezes, eyes locked ahead, with shock and sudden panic slamming across his face. Roy goes totally berserk, wildly slashing through the forest as he screams at the top of his lungs. His companions stare in terror as they realize he's totally lost control. Glenn's face tightens into grim determination as he stares at the chaos unfolding before him. The women shout after him, their voices trembling with pure worry and raw fear. Glenn grit his teeth and swore they had to bring Roy down, no more letting him run wild. Fleur wonders if anyone can even stop him when he's like this. Roy tears the air apart with a raw, guttural scream of agony and fury. Glenn tells Agnes he's going to push her endurance to the absolute limit by commanding her himself. With pure focus burning in her eyes, sorceress Agnes launches into a powerful incantation to supercharge Glenn. Another party member snaps that Florida should shield Luz and Luca, the two non-combatants, no matter what. The swordswoman screams a warning, yelling for them to scramble back to safety. Her eyes go wide with terror as a brutal shockwave slams into them out of nowhere. Her fingers snap to her sword's hilt like it's instinct, and the second danger hits, she's ready to strike. Agnes snaps into action and hurls a shimmering barrier spell, locking in a shield to protect her companions. The swordswoman sliced through trees and hacked aside the rubble hurtling toward her, carving a path in midair. Agnes swings into action, telling everyone, "We're safe for now inside my field." She tells them there's only one move left now, fully trust Glenn, no second thoughts. Far off, Roy stands by himself, radiating raw, unstoppable power like it's exploding out of his skin. Glenn's aura turns into pure pressure, and the metal on his face starts to crack under the force. Glenn planted his feet and faced a furious storm of spinning leaves, all crackling with raw power. A colossal log rips free from the earth and rockets straight at him. With a thunderous swing, he braces himself to split that thick timber clean in two. With one thunderous swing, he cleanly splits the projectile in two. Glenn's eyes blow wide with shock as a ruthless tactical move hits out of nowhere. Roy's caught, and it turns out he'd been using the log as a perfect shield for his attack. Two warriors collide head-on, their massive swords smashing together in a savage, ironclad grapple. Sparks erupt as their blades smash together, roaring with insane force. Glenn's eyes widen as he realizes Roy is still thinking, like rage is roaring everywhere, but his mind hasn't stopped. He can't stop wondering how that berserker is still able to plan every attack like a mastermind. Their locked blades flare with raw energy, and Glenn gets blasted backward through the air. His companions stare in pure terror from behind their protective barrier. He slams into the ground with a brutal thud, and for a split second, he's completely stunned by the impact. Fleur screams that Roy just smashed through Glenn's magically boosted strength. Agnes grimaces and admits his power is way bigger than she ever dreamed. Fleur grips her clawed weapon so tight her knuckles ache, swearing they have to find a way to help, no matter what. Clutching her staff, Agnes declares they've got to give Glenn a real shot at fighting back. Suddenly, strange shimmering droplets start raining down from the air all around them. The two women leap into action until a bizarre phenomenon slams the brakes on them. Fleur's face went completely blank, packed with pure shock and total confusion. Agnes stares in total shock, eyes huge as those weird, sparkling droplets shimmer before her. Roy is the source and he's falling apart, uncontrollably crying, his face twisted with pure, crushing sorrow. His companions freeze mid-breath, staring in shock like, "Wait, are you really crying?" The moment he thinks of it, a brutal wave of memory crashes in his lost friends, Luna and Ruka, tearing at his mind like it's happening all over again. Another vision hits him begging that fallen kite, "Don't leave me alone." Glenn can't believe it. Some fresh, brand new rookie is already packing power that massive, and it comes with pain that hits just as hard. Women shout his name, shaking with worry, as he steps up to face the weeping warrior. Glenn braces himself, and a wild, unstoppable aura spirals around him as he's about to strike again. He nods with real empathy, admitting he never even imagined how deep Roy's past went. He can't stop staring at the brutal irony. World's strongest heroes are falling apart right now. Clenching his fist, Glenn's resolve surged hard, like he'd already decided exactly what comes next. He declares loud and final that since he's Roy's superior, the job to stop him falls on his shoulders. He barrels ahead, roaring one frantic plea into the air, "Roy, wake up." Roy gets rocked, too brutal. Bone-jarring punches slam into his jaw and gut. The crowd can do nothing but gawk, mouths hanging open in pure, breathless shock. The brutal impact yanks Roy's head backward, and he clamps his eyes shut as agony floods him. The hit lands with such brutal force that Glenn's own gauntlet splinters on impact. A shock rips Roy out of his berserker haze and slams him back into his senses. Dazed out of his mind, he barely manages to recognize the man in front of him, Glenn. Glenn softly rests a comforting hand on Roy's head. He leans in and whispers, "So Roy's finally awake again and back with me." Roy's eyes blow wide with pure horror as the truth of what he just did finally hits. His sword slips from his grip and crashes onto the forest floor with a dull, useless clatter. He gapes at his own shaking hands, stunned beyond belief, crushed by shame. Guilt crushes him and he blurts out, choking on the truth, he lost control again. Glenn watches it all unfold, wearing a tired but still compassionate look that says he gets it. He tries to brush the whole incident off, insisting it was nothing but some confusion magic. Then he throws out a quick apology for having to go that violent. He snaps his fingers against Roy's forehead and with a grin, affectionately calls the frantic Roy an idiot. Agnes lunges into position, hands ready as she prepares to blast healing light onto both men. Ryuka grins at Agnes and teases her like, "Hold up, I was just about to drop something cool." He can tell Glenn's punch landed hard, but one strike is all it took to do the job. Agnes flashes him a warm smile as Roy murmurs her name, and you can feel it, she's truly back with them. After everything settles, Fleur lines in and reassures the shaken Luca that they're okay. Luce wipes away a tear, clutches her chest, and exhales like she's finally safe. She clutches her chest, her heart hammering like it's still trapped inside the fear. Ryuka grabs Roy's hands and pours out his gratitude for saving her, while Luce watches, stunned with deep, heartfelt appreciation. That brutal memory from a year ago just slams into Roy's head, and suddenly he feels uneasy the moment he's around them. He watches with a troubled face, stuck in his head, trying to figure out why everyone keeps being so kind. Glenn slams down the decision. The whole party is leaving the area right now. He steals his resolve and vows to warn everyone about the brand new, terrifying monsters tearing into the world. They scrap the monster capture mission, and the whole party split up for good. Striding through Lumen, Roy couldn't shake the dread. No one had even mentioned his rampage. His memory of the whole incident is a non-stop blur, pure chaos, screaming, and violence crashing in from every direction. He can't understand it. Why did he feel totally fine the moment he fought tooth and nail to protect Saria? He links that wild outburst to a nightmare he'd just crawled through that morning. Sylvie, his master's voice of encouragement, now rings hollow in the worst possible way. He tears into himself, convinced he's nothing but a total rookie in a world of real fighters. His mind rockets back to the moment he was dragged into this world for the first time. He still remembers those two friends who stood shoulder to shoulder with him, then reality hits and they're gone. He starts doubting who he's really meant to be, even weighing isolation as a way to shield everyone else from his terrifying power. With a crushing ache in his chest, he trudges toward the edge of this totally ridiculous new world. The doorbell blasts out a harsh clang the second he steps inside. Saria snaps his head up from behind the counter, eyes wide when the sudden arrival crashes into the room. She and another woman greet him with radiant, sincere smiles, as if they've been waiting for him all along. Roy gets hit by their kindness out of nowhere, and right then his eyes start filling with tears. He suddenly realizes he doesn't want to run anymore. He wants to live right in the middle of his new companions, smiles. Staring down Saria, he swears he'll smash through his inexperience and finally control his power. He barrels back into the border town, shouting that he's finally home, and this time he's not leaving. Far from everything, one lone wanderer strides outside the grand kingdom of Claris, all alone against the vast world. Sylvie hums a chilling, cryptic tune about visitors who somehow slipped in from another time. Her song spills out the tale of three heroes. One fights with a sword, and another raises a staff. A white bird dives out of the sky. Clutched to it is a message tied tight like it can't wait any longer. A royal messenger, sent straight from the king, slams down right into her hand. The handwritten note hits her with a blunt, handwritten command, "Go to Lumen." She flashes a smile right at the exact moment the summons lands perfectly. Late at night, inside a lavish office, a tense conversation is exploding in the quiet. The guildmaster looms over the table, then taps his fingers on the paper like he's ready to explode. The advisor leans in and warns that the uncontrolled hero is a clear, immediate danger to everyone. In a pitch-black office, a shifty advisor leans in and pushes the Crimson Lions for his own agenda. The intimidating guildmaster broods for a moment, then flat-out admits his real goal is to wipe out their target for good. His advisor shoots down the plan, warning that the target's power might be impossible to control, even for the whole kingdom. He remembers a report saying Glenn crushed the rampage, and warns Glenn could end up killing him, maybe just out of a twisted sense of responsibility. The guildmaster shoots the claim down with chilling confidence because Glenn isn't a killer. Then he spills his real scheme, recruiting a gifted ex-assassin hiding right inside the party. Urgent, clacking footsteps thunder down the hallway, racing straight toward the office. Suddenly, the office door slams open, and the advisor's voice cuts through the room, announcing a shock interruption nobody saw coming. Panting, Aline bursts in with a distressed look, then blurts out an apology for barging in. She blazes out the shocking truth: someone snatched the precious armor flower clean out of the world. Next morning, cheerful birds are already singing outside that tall, stately inn. Inside, a sleepy Roy stretches awake with a huge yawn. Rushing down the stairs, he can't help it. The echo of a violin from the cafeteria pulls him in. The music spins a wild story about visitors slipping in from another time and place, roaming in like they own the night. The song kicks off with the first hero, a fierce young woman who gripped a sword and refused to back down. Then it shifts to a second hero, a young guy wielding a staff like it's his destiny. The three heroes stand shoulder to shoulder, united and ready to smash head-on into the coming great evil. But the bard's song turns dark, singing about your death and the sudden vanishing of another soul. Roy's face snaps into total shock as the song cuts out, because the final hero is still out there, fighting alone. Saria, totally ignoring the pain, erupts into excited clapping and gushes about how breathtaking the song is. The smiling bard grins and confirms it: the three heroes' song is its title. Saria bursts in with a wild claim. She's heard the legend told a bunch of different ways, even versions where there are way fewer heroes. While she dives into the song's meaning, Roy slides in and greets her with a warm, friendly smile. She beams back with a bright greeting, and Roy can't help but remark on how buzzing and alive the inn feels. Saria beams and spills that the bard is a friend of her mom's, then reveals he's here because he's been invited for the grand reopening. With a grin that could disarm anyone, the charismatic bard strikes a pose and winks, then introduces himself as Kite. Roy steps back in and introduces himself again, wearing a warm, gentle smile like it's got nothing but good intentions. The moment Kite hears Roy's name, his whole vibe shifts, his eyes sharpen with sudden, razor-clear focus. He leans in and straight-up demands whether Roy has some kind of special bond with Saria. The bard plucks a gentle, curious melody on his instrument and keeps his eyes locked on them, like he's trying to figure out every move. His song paints his destined mission to trek through this town and track down a cute little flower. Kite tells Roy, as a regular here, I can sniff out a newcomer like you in seconds. He bursts out dramatically, saying his razor-sharp sensitivity just uncovered the special bond between them. He claims their bond goes way beyond some plain worker and client connection. Roy is flustered and blurts out that she's just handed him a whole stack of free services. Kite's eye twitches and his thoughts sprint, because the idea of free services hits like a bomb. His violin shrieks while he daydreams up filthy fantasies, and Saria snaps at him with a vicious scolding. Saria lets out a heavy sigh. He's not even listening. Then she explains, straight-faced, that she owes Roy her life. Roy leans in close and whispers to Saria, asking if her amazing offer of free lodging is still on the table. Kite hums under his breath, lost in thought, convinced that a secret bond links them in ways nobody else can see. Roy's otherworldly mystery explodes to the surface when he tilts his head and asks, so, what's a fiddle? Kite leans in and tells everyone the truth. This instrument he's been playing isn't just anything, it's a fiddle. A quick, nostalgic flash shows a younger Kite running around, cheering up a girl who looks just like Saria. Roy's smile snaps away, his face turns stone serious and locked tight, like the whole vibe just flipped from fun to danger. Kite's playful grin drops instantly, and a cold, focused stare hardens his face. The innkeeper bursts in and tells a stunned Roy that someone's been waiting in the guest room. Glenn looms in the doorway, eyes hard, and sharply motions for Roy to step outside with him. Roy stared in total confusion, frozen as Glenn burst in out of nowhere, sudden, serious, and impossible to ignore. Outside, Roy's face blanks with pure shock the second he hears that the armor flower got stolen. Glenn snaps him shut fast, breathless, making it crystal clear that the guild's reputation is hanging by a thread. Roy demanded answers. Why won't you trust me with something this important and secret, Glenn? Glenn leans in and tells Roy, you're our only shot. Your senses can pick up that flower's rare aura like nobody else. Roy realizes this is his shot to matter, to step in and serve a purpose without having to throw hands. He ties the theft straight to the doctor's case, and his determination to save Saria turns ice hard. He jumps right in to help, then leans in and asks where they should start hunting. Roy nods, eyes locked in. Got it. Our search kicks off at the town festival. Glenn warns them the thieves could slip in and secretly sell off those stolen goods right there. He drops the bombshell that he and Agnes are hitting the slave market, fully disguised as customers. Roy and Fleur get sent to hunt down the storage area inside the market. Roy's eyes blow wide with shock and confusion the second slave market gets mentioned. The story snaps to a roaring festival street, bright under a sky full of clouds. Jostled in the crush of the crowded street, Roy mutters the words, the slave market. He scans the bright, festive scene, and his face twists with total, stunned confusion. He leans in to his buddies and insists, it just looks like a totally normal festival, nothing to worry about. The stalls are crammed with ornate teapots, glittering jewelry boxes, and all kinds of top-tier treasures. Glenn tells them slavery got banned long ago, now it's just the name that's left, like a ghost of the past. Roy takes it all in, but doubt lingers in his eyes and worry twists in his chest. He jumps in shock when a mysterious figure in a dark hood suddenly appears before him. His eyes snap wide with shock, and a tiny, involuntary gasp slips out before he can stop it. Glenn yanks him back to the here and now and makes it crystal clear, time to split up. Roy brushes the sighting off like it's nothing, convinced his master, Sylvie, couldn't possibly be anywhere nearby. The two pairs split up and vanished into the packed, buzzing festival market. Agnes watches them fade away, worry tightening her face as she can't stop wondering if Roy will make it okay. Glenn leans in and reassures her with total confidence. He's sure the city's magical barrier will slam the door on every monster attack. Agnes spills the guild's secret orders, shadow Roy, and keep him trapped at F rank. She clocks the truth instantly. His power is so massive it's considered impossible to rein in. Glenn snaps that it's all a facade, and he admits he's 80% to 90% sure Roy is the hero. He admits that after seeing Roy's terrifying rage, he dug into Roy's past and hunted down every detail. Saria sat him down and told him the truth. Roy used to be part of a huge adventuring party. For some crazy reason, he eventually turned around and started fighting all by himself. Agnes can only sigh and admit it. His unstoppable rage is the only thing that could have done it. Glenn seethed with rage, insisting his old party wasn't loyal at all. They were scared, and they only kept him around for his power. Agnes is hit with a jolt. What if Roy has no idea he's even a hero? Glenn grimly admits that even if he'd known, he still wouldn't have felt proud about being used. Agnes leans in and tells Glenn, you're the one who shut down Roy's rampage. He shrugs off the strong label because Roy, he's on a whole other level. Glenn's rage finally erupts, fueled by the Lumen Guild's hypocrisy and the way they've been mistreating Roy. Agnes leans in and asks if he truly thinks he could stop Roy again if it ever became necessary. Glenn's jaw clenched with grim determination as he demanded, so who else is supposed to pull this off? Agnes gave him a soft, knowing smile that seemed to say she understood just how heavy his responsibility really was. She tells him that's exactly why you're getting us, Fleur, and I chose to stand by you for that reason. Elsewhere, Fleur strides beside Roy, her face etched with deep worry in a heavy, gloomy silence. They roll up to the festival's storage area, and Roy just stares like, whoa, this place is huge. A memory hits Roy in a berserk frenzy, so wild he looks like a totally different person. In a wild flashback, the guildmaster leans in and tells Fleur, you're the only one who can do this. He tells her straight up that Roy is the same kind of danger she's already survived a dozen times. Fleur's voice shook as she demanded what he meant by her experience, then a lone bead of sweat trickled down her face. He warns her that if Roy's rage flares again, Glenn could get killed. The guildmaster smirks right at her, reminding her, straight up, that her family's assassination skills are still hers to use. Fleur is frozen in total shock, her eyes stretched wide as the memory of his unspoken threat claws at her mind. A voice blares Fleur, and she snaps to attention, jolted out of her dark, troubled daze. Roy leans in and asks what's wrong, but she snaps back fast, saying nothing's off at all. Roy stands in front of a line of storehouses, and one of them just feels asterisk off. He takes one look around and realizes the whole place is packed with magical items, all waiting to light up the festival. Roy tells them he can feel faint magic leaking from every other building, but this one feels strangely dead, like it's hiding something. Fleur urges them to check inside, and Roy falls in quiet but fully on board. One lone step hits the floor, and boom, something hidden in the ground springs to life. A blinding flash erupts from the floor right in front of them, swallowing the whole moment in light. Fleur snaps her hands over her eyes, demanding answers while Roy suspects they've just stepped into a magical trap. Her face twists into full-blown terror the moment she realizes danger is right on top of her. Roy can't believe his eyes. This is happening right in the middle of Lumen. A sour, gloomy light spreads over everything, and he instantly knows this is trouble coming fast. As the light blasts brighter, he realizes it's not just glowing, it's carving out a deadly shape. Fleur's eyes snap wide with pure horror as she locks onto the threat starting to rise. She calls the creature a dragon, spins a magical weave, and names it one of the most ruthless monsters alive. Fleur's heart slams as the awful thought hits her. Roy could snap and go on a rampage. Roy feels the same terror in his bones, because if he loses control, the fallout is nothing short of catastrophic. His hand snaps into a tight, unbreakable fist, like resolve is gripping it from the inside. The V-Weaver towers over them, and he snaps that they can't leave it standing here. Roy grabs everyone's attention and tells a stunned Fleur that he's done running from his weakness. He's decided to face it head-on and fight. A grainy flashback hits. Young Ere clutches a fallen female companion in his arms, like he's trying to keep her from slipping away. In the pouring rain, one broken soul stands alone, like the world froze mid-breath, and that moment flips the entire course of his life. Ripping through the silence with a scream of anguish, he claws a brand new life into existence, Roy, born from the wreckage of that tragedy. The story snaps to the outside of a massive inn called Luna. Inside, Saria, a young woman, slams clean plates into stacks with a loud clatter. Her mother told her to clean the customers' rooms, and she beams and agrees without a second thought. Saria can't stop smiling as she thinks about how amazing it feels to finally see her mom healthy again. It's like her mom's grave sickness never even happened in the first place. Her thoughts slip to the legendary Amour flower, the one everyone swore was the only cure. Chaos hits her mind in violent flashes. Roy's flower isn't just missing, it's the whole reason she's desperate to get it back. She can't shake the gut-punching moment when she realized the corrupt doctor betrayed her. The humiliation still stings in her chest as she climbs the stairs, shaking off the fact that she was totally fooled. A flash of memories crashes in, turning the truth crystal clear. It was Roy who finally pulled her and her mom out of the worst of it. With a sharp clack, she shoves the door open and steps into a room packed with brooms. She peeks into the spotless clean-in room, and you can almost feel the relief hit, like they've finally, truly reopened. A smiling picture of Roy flashes in her mind, and that's when she realizes it all happened because of him. She decides to blitz through the whole room and scrub it spotless for Roy's stay. Her eyes snap to a tiny object lying on the floor. A little discarded ribbon lies crumpled under the bedside table, like it was left behind in a hurry. Saria drops to her knees and snatches up the thing everyone left behind. She grips the dirty blue hair ribbon and studies it like it might hold a secret, the jeweled brooch glinting as she turns it over. Her face snaps into pure horror as she finally sees the dark stain for what it is, blood. She grips the ribbon tight to her chest, and pure worry swarms through her mind. Her mood darkens the second she recalls something about Roy. She remembers seeing him just once, so raw and helpless that it felt like he was one breath away from breaking down and crying. The ribbon slips right out of her fingers and thuds onto the table. One single tear slips down her cheek, like it's breaking her heart in silence. She's stuck in a spiral, begging to know what brutal memories forged Roy's past and left him in pain. Elsewhere, Agnes races to Glenn and tells him her market search turned up nothing, no leads, no answers. She then leans in and asks, "So what about Roy and Fleur? Are we bringing them with us?" Glenn leans in and tells her that right now, the two of them are stuck in the storage area. A brutal explosion tears through the sky out of nowhere, blasting everything in its path. Glenn and Agnes whirl toward the alarm's roar, instantly shaken by the deafening blast. While everyone else cheers and thinks it's fireworks, Agnes knows that sound spells straight-up trouble. She spots it instantly. The blast is coming straight from the town's storage district. Amid the wreckage, you spot Roy and Fleur's silhouettes staring out from the chaos. The Voive towers above as the crew gets slammed against a roaring energy barrier, pinned in place. Roy stares at the stunned Fleur and demands to know, can she recognize that monstrous thing? She leans in and swears those scales are tougher than steel and that its eyes are packed with brutal magic. For someone like her, a scout, no less, she realizes the survival odds are basically a death sentence. Roy straps in and decides he'll hold the monster back while she bolts off to fetch Glenn. Fleur agrees with a shaky gulp, worry swallowing her whole face. As she spins to bolt, Roy charges straight at the beast, no backup, just him. He finally exhales, knowing she won't get dragged into his rampage in the first place. His eyes squeeze shut with razor-sharp focus, like he's hunting for the exact moment everything changes. He swears he won't go on a rampage, because his only goal is to kill it. Floor bolts through the deserted streets, and her footsteps boom back at her with every step. She sprints at full speed, pounding the ground as she races for help. Her footsteps slow as she wrestles with the idea of telling Glenn. She slams to a full stop, worry crashing over her like a wave. She knows Glenn's got no chance with armor cracked to pieces, but she also knows he'll still throw himself in front of Roy and pay the price with his own life. Her mind rockets back 10 years to a massive, ominous mansion looming in the shadows. A memory hits hard, blood splashes across an ornate wall, frozen in time. She leans in and spills her past, born into a family of assassins. By the time she was 10, she was already a prodigy, and her very first kill was only the beginning. She didn't flinch, her jealousy-struck peers couldn't weigh her down or rattle her one bit. She was sure of one thing: an assassin couldn't afford even a flicker of doubt to rattle their heart. But then, out of nowhere, the mission flipped everything upside down. She remembers her mistake, and the moment she got slammed hard into a wall like all the air got knocked out of her. Her target, a former noble, turned out to be way tougher than she ever expected. She gasped through searing pain, completely beaten and left battered. A blade's razor tip is pressed right against her. Her eyes stare blankly, like every feeling got drained out. Even with death breathing down her neck, her heart felt nothing at all. She clamps her eyes shut, bracing for the moment it all ends. A voice slices through her apathy, pulling her toward him like it's calling her name. Her eyes snap wide open, like she's caught off guard by something she didn't see coming. Towering over her, a young Glenn let his sword drop to the ground. He clocks it right away. She doesn't look like she's trying to really kill anyone. He realizes her eyes are empty of hope. She doesn't want to live, like her life barely matters anymore. Glenn admits he can't stand the thought of walking away and leaving that kid trapped in this state. He hands her a real shot at living exactly the way she's always wanted. Tears burst free and streamed down her face. The moment he takes her hand, she feels her heart kick to life for the very first time. In the present, she chokes out Glenn's name, and the pain on her face hits like a punch to the gut. She grabs her chest, frozen in place, trapped between fear and indecision. Roy squares up, eyes locked on the challenge, and sets his sights on the next move. He slings a power-boosting spell, fully aware his sword won't stand a chance against those scales. He barrels in headfirst, dead set on smashing the beast to death with pure physical power. His brutal strike lands with a thunderous impact, jolting the massive dragon back and ripping a scream of agony from its throat. A young woman jerks in a breath, eyes bulging as the shocking scene unfolds right before her. Roy hammers his fist into the weave, roaring like he's about to shatter it for good. From the sidelines, Fleur breaks down and screams Roy's name the moment he rockets into the chaos. She studies every move in his fighting style, clocking the tactics he uses to take down the dragon enemy. Fleur's eyes widen in sheer awe. He's been doing the entire group's work all by himself. She's locked in, mentally counting every insane move as his technique forges his body, then magic seals it all in place. A spine-tingling thought hits her. What if his overwhelming power goes even further? Roy slams in with a thunderous thud, landing a bone-crunching kick that jolts the massive beast back on its heels. He clenches his sword in both hands, bracing for a final, decisive strike. His eyes burn with pure feral rage as he decides, no more waiting, he's ending this fight. Fleur can't shake the horrifying thought, what if his power gets unleashed on humans? The fight turns into a wild blur of slashes, and she screams a warning through the chaos. A vivid memory hits, her guild master barking orders, demanding she unleash her assassin skills. He'd reminded her of the kind of strength her family unleashed every time humans tried to stand against them. He figured, sure, monsters are brutal, but Roy's human, and that changes everything. Even the guildmaster had clocked it. Roy's instincts were horrible at spotting danger in time. Her pulse rocketed the moment he called her Roy's perfect enemy. Then he painted a brutal scene of Roy, left exposed and trembling after the fight. She imagines Roy's hands gripping his sword, then she's already lining up the perfect moment to strike. The guildmaster's voice roared in her ear, begging her to gamble everything on that one shot. Right now, she spots Roy standing there with his back to a swinging open doorway. Glenn's face flashes in her mind, and one thought locks in: she's going to protect him, no matter what. Clawed weapons already in hand, she steels herself to become an assassin once more. A calm, peaceful flashback blooms, mountains rising in silent serenity. A younger Luna panics in a flash. She accidentally blasts a bug with magic, and suddenly she's freaking out. Isaiah throws out an apology, but Luna erupts into laughter, swearing he wouldn't even harm a fly. A flashback cuts in. Kite grins and teases a younger Luna after she's out there crushing bugs by hand. Kite leans in and tells Isai, "Don't panic," then pushes him to swing his sword and unleash magic. Luna flashes a fierce smile and orders him to step back, insisting Kite and she will handle the killing. The three friends lock eyes in a bright, hopeful rush and swear, no matter what, that they'll all make it home together. Right now, Roy looms over the lifeless body of the defeated Vuve. He stares at his own hand, shocked that he didn't unleash his rage ability this time. He's stuck in the same old misery. Without Roy's power, he can't even finish a thing the right way. A flash of his two buddies, Kite and Luna, shows up in school uniforms, burned into his memory. Knives slice through the air, blasting toward Roy's back while he's still stuck in his thoughts. Roy's profile screams pure shock, because the attack hits out of nowhere, and nobody even saw it coming. Fleur plunges down from above the doorway, an eerie, silent omen of death. She drops down on unsuspecting Roy, weapon blazing overhead, as she's about to smash him. Roy's eyes bulge with pure shock, and the ambush hits him way too late. Fleur's masked face stares out with ruthless, ice-cold determination, like she's locked in and won't blink. A blinding white flash erupts the instant everything hits. One lone drop of blood tumbles through the air, going drip, drip, like the world is holding its breath. Roy's face is swallowed by shadow, and after that hit, his expression turns impossible to read. Fleur's face is swallowed in shadows, and the feelings burning inside her stay completely out of sight. Knife-bare blade buried into his back, she chokes out in anguish, screaming why he didn't dodge. Blood erupts around the weapon, slicing into his shoulder while he stays frozen in place. Roy leaned in and demanded to know why Fleur hesitated, and her hand kept twitching on the hilt. He tells me he watched her fight and instantly knew something was off. He remembers noticing a sudden shift in her attitude toward him lately. He tells her that, out of nowhere, she vanished from his sight, like his perception got wiped clean. Fleur still remembers the day someone warned her that Roy had zero talent for spotting anything. Roy blurts out that he never saw the betrayal coming, then admits he got stabbed in the back. Fleur swears he felt something was off, and he's furious he didn't stop her. Roy drops his gaze, quietly admitting she's right about how on edge he's been. He finally admits it, he wasn't ready to draw his sword against her. He couldn't make himself believe she really wanted him dead. His gentle words yank Fleur back into memories of Glenn, and instantly tears spill into her eyes. She realizes Roy is just a light Glenn, so her weapon slips from her grip and clatters to the floor. Fleur gets overwhelmed and drops to her knees, sobbing out a desperate apology. Roy tells them Guildmaster warned him she could snap into a rage again at any moment. Fleur clings to Glenn's kindness, convinced he'd never, ever stand for what she's done. She breaks down in sobs, suddenly realizing she was one step away from doing something that could never be undone. Roy stared down at her, stunned by the crushing weight of her regret. Fleur screams his name, choking back sobs as she pours out non-stop apologies for everything she's done. Roy drops to his knees, eye level with the sobbing, shattered assassin sprawled on the floor. He swallows his pride and apologizes, admitting he's so untrained that he scared her with his mess. Fleur lifts her gaze, and tear trails carve down her cheeks as sheer confusion floods her face. She shakes her head, refusing to swallow his apology for what he did. A voice barks from off-panel, demanding to know what the guildmaster told her. Glenn and Agnes crashed through the door, and Glenn screamed Fleur's name like fury itself had taken over. Rage twists Glenn's face as he shouts that she's a stupid fool. Fleur flinches hard, her hand jerking as his brutal words land like a punch. He snapped, furious, demanding to know why she never told him or even let him help. He sets his hand on her head and swears he'll never leave, no matter what happens. His face burns with pure, unshakable loyalty to his friends. No doubt, no wavering, just fierce devotion. He leans in and tells her, softly but firmly, that she doesn't have to face this alone anymore. Fleur snatches her tears back, letting his comfort settle in while Roy and Agnes stare on, stunned. Glenn swings back to Roy, offering a real apology for the whole mess. He swears, with real regret burning in his voice, that this will never happen again. Roy flat out rejects the apology and snaps back that he's the one who started the whole thing. Glenn explodes, calling out Roy's idea that running away could fix anything. He tells them, "I didn't want you to leave me behind, so that's why we did what we did." He glares at Roy and snaps, "Don't talk like being abandoned is something you just have to accept." Roy snaps his gaze up, and Glenn's words slam into him like a gut punch. He stares down, speechless, because Glenn's fiery speech crushed any chance he had to fight back. Glenn snaps at him to quit apologizing and figure out what he actually wants to do. He reminds Roy that every adventurer answers to his own rules in the end. Roy dreams of finally wiping out his inexperience and living by that promise no matter what. Suddenly, a monstrous flower-headed creature bursts out of the ground right in front of them. Roy freezes, eyes bulging in pure terror as that nightmare shows up out of nowhere. Glenn, Fleur, and Agnes, every one of them, are left completely stunned, speechless. Roy's mind goes into overdrive, snapping onto the monster's head, the one he recognizes from the old tales of the fabled Emmerflower. The flower-shaped head keeps pulsing, and each beat comes with a vile wet squish of something alive. A nasty viscous slime drips straight out of the creature's grotesque form, like nature itself decided to ooze. More sharp, slippery splashes burst from its scaly body as it lunges forward. Vine-like tentacles erupt from the ground, snatching the whole party in their deadly hold. Their limbs writhe and crawl forward, sealing off the only way out. They keep surging forward, an alive, moving cage made of monstrous, writhing flesh. The Jever's complete, terrifying form burst into view, reborn in fury and roaring with fresh rage. Fleur's voice cracks with disbelief as he stares at the giver. Somehow, they've come back to life. Roy stammers in disbelief, his face frozen in pure shock and total confusion. His shock snaps into rage, and he's screaming that he failed to kill the monster. A mysterious hand lifts an ornate staff high and unleashes a world-shaking spell that rewrites reality in an instant. The whole cavern starts to freeze in an instant, sealing itself in razor-sharp crystalline ice. A glowing magic circle snaps into existence on the ground, and the freezing power races outward. The monstrous giver gets instantly sealed, frozen mid-swing in a brutal burst of ice, caught in the exact moment it tried to move. Glenn and Fleur freeze in pure shock, staring straight ahead like, "Wait, what in the world just happened?" Agnes spots the spell instantly, and her heart drops as she realizes someone forged the sorceress's world. A booming, disembodied voice rips through the frozen wasteland, screaming Isya across the ice. The name slams into Roy's brain, and a sudden spark of recognition lights up his eyes. A mysterious voice suddenly drops the monster's fatal weakness to the party, and the whole group goes on alert. She declares that the giver's heart, its very core, is hidden inside that one single eye. Agnes's face snaps into razor-sharp focus as she gets ready to unleash her magic. Fleur's eyes blaze with fearless determination as she steels herself for the final assault. Glenn's expression hardens into a grim, unbreakable line as he steels himself to back the decisive strike. Agnes throws her voice into an incantation, charging up to unleash a supporting magic orb spell. Glenn and Fleur brace hard as the monster fights like it's out of time, clawing and thrashing in its last, desperate moments. Even trapped in its magical cage, the Jeeve thrashes like it's dying to break free, frozen but roaring with violent fury. Glenn gets slammed, its massive tail whips out and lands a brutal, bone-rattling hit. Glenn yells Roy's name at the top of his lungs, half warning, half desperate encouragement. Roy rockets through the sky, sword blazing overhead as he lines up the final, game-ending strike. With a brutal burst of strength, he drives his blade straight into the giver's exposed eye. That crystal world dissolves into nothing, and Glenn can't shake the feeling. What kind of weird space were they trapped in? A hooded stranger leans in and lays out the dark truth behind the sorceress's magic and the world it's built to control. Roy whips his head around, and realization hits him hard as he finally recognizes that voice. She drops her hood and boom, reveals she's his true master, Sylvie. A year ago, the Demon Lord's attack still haunts him, right when that party shattered and scattered. Roy can't even remember how the war ended, and suddenly he's cut off completely, alone, utterly isolated. With the party's purpose dead and gone, he had nowhere left to turn. The flashback slams him with a sharp, pained face as he's forced to relive every moment of his old despair. He was stranded in a strange new world, completely alone, and he had zero clue how to stay alive. In his darkest moment, a memory flashes, and a cloaked figure closes in on him like the end is finally here. It was Sylvie, the sorceress, who led the magic crew through the party like a spark that wouldn't quit. A flashback explodes, Sylvie saves Roy, then invites him to become her disciple, offering him a new place to stand. Blonde witch Agnes just stares, frozen in shock, then a bead of sweat drops down her face. Glenn can't believe it. He stares at Roy like, "Wait, how do you even know the legendary royal magician?" Roy shoots an awkward look and admits the terrifying sorceress is his master. He still remembers spotting a cloaked stranger in the markets, and now he finally understands it was her. Roy leans in and demands to know why his master dragged herself all the way to Lumen. Just before he can even get an answer, Sylvie strides up and hurls her own burning question into the air. She snaps her ornate staff toward Fleur, demanding to know why she tried to assassinate him. Her sharp eyes narrowed in an instant, and you could tell she'd caught every word from their last conversation. Outside the storehouse, a restless crowd surges in, pulled there by the shouting and commotion. Agnes spots the crowd swelling around her, and worry tightens across her face. Roy steps in fast, tells Glenn to take the crowd, and promises he'll explain the whole story later. Glenn nods and promises, "Don't worry, I'll apologize to Sylvie myself afterward." Later on, Roy and Sylvie finally burst in and step through the doors of a massive inn. The moment the door swings open and clangs, the innkeeper's warm welcome hits Roy like a cozy wave, pulling him right back inside. Saria grins wide and greets Roy by name the second he steps inside. Roy shoots back her greeting, standing shoulder to shoulder with the hooded, shadowy Sylvie. As they push deeper into Yen's common area, the scene shifts to match the chase. Saria asked if his guest planned to stay, and Sylvie grinned, saying she already had a room waiting for her at the guild. The innkeeper relents and lets them have what they asked for, but you can still see the disappointment flicker across his face. Flamboyant bard with a violin winks at Roy and beams as he greets him the moment Roy arrives. Roy's eyes go wide when he spots the musician, and he realizes it's Keikite, the one he knows. The bard whips his focus onto Sylvie and blurts out, right away, how sharp she is. When Keikite hears that Saria is Roy's master, he points at Roy like he's guilty, then jokes that he's been two-timing Saria. Then the musician misreads it all again, swearing Sylvie must be the master's secret lover. Sylvie's smile turns razor-sharp and chilling as she asks, "Can we go to our room?" Kite's body locks up in total terror, and she's drenched in sweat as his menacing aura crushes the air around her. Roy slams the doors shut, spotting his master's nightmare-cold smile as the bar shakes beneath them. The two of them whip around, march up the stairs, and leave everyone else eating dust behind them. Saria watched them leave, cheeks burning as a curious, flustered smile flickered across her face. All alone in that room, Sylvie smirks and drops it. Now she can finally use his real name, Isaiah. Then she leaned in and demanded he tell her, straight up, why he picked the Elias Roy. A flashback shows him scrambling to invent a new name, just to slip past a guard, who already recognized his face. Sylvie can't believe it. She's staring at the fact that the assassination attempt happened purely because his rage won't stay under control. The young man nods grimly, confirming it. Roy is back, and this time he's raging again. Then he drops the bombshell. He finally remembers both of his lives. With a heavy heart, he swallows his pride and apologizes to Sylvie for every bit of training she gave him. The moment he blurts out his real name, Zaya, everything clicks and a shock of truth slams into him. Sylvie tells him that no matter what happened with that rage, she can't just leave him alone in this town. When Fleur thinks of Isaiah, her face tightens with resolve, and she swears she'll never pull that trick on him again. Isaiah lunges for Sylvie's arm, fighting tooth and nail for Fleur, telling everyone she was just following an order. Sylvie's rage erupts. She screams at him, demanding to know why he lets everything slide so easily. Isaiah tells everyone that if he can't force himself to forgive Fleur, he'll never be able to forgive himself. A brutal memory slams into him, his own rampage, where he confesses he was trying to kill Glenn. The two of them stood there in crushing silence, frozen in heavy thought right after his shocking confession. Sylvie insists he must have been completely oblivious to what he was doing during the attack. She rushes in to comfort him, insisting his moves weren't really who Isaiah was at heart. Isaiah slams the idea down hard, shouting that not knowing is no excuse to beg for forgiveness. He won't hide behind some unstoppable other identity. He owns his actions and takes the guilt. He can't forget how Roy's old party members still refused to give ground, even after he came crashing in and attacked them. Sylvie watches him, stunned by how deep his pain goes and scared by what she's seeing. Isaiah admits his next request is selfish because he can't stop thinking about how Glenn never abandoned him and still chose kindness. He pauses just long enough to steel himself, then fires off the kind of heartfelt plea that hits straight in the chest. Tears burned in his eyes as he blurted out. He wasn't leaving. He was begging to stay and live right here. Sylvie couldn't hold it back. One tear slipped down her cheek, shaking as she felt his raw, unstoppable emotion. Her face loosens as she shuts her eyes, and the fury finally drains out of her like smoke. She admits she might have been just as hot-headed in how she reacted. Isaiah points out that this mess isn't over, something bigger is happening, and it demands their full attention right now. He declares he's got one more lead to chase, and he won't step out of town until the VUV case is cracked wide open. Sylvie's eyes go wide as she blurts out, "Wait, what's happening? Is something else going down that I don't know about?" Her question hangs there, and she just waits, breath held, ready for him to finally explain. She lays out the whole connection between the fake elixirs, the stolen flower, and the Bowever, like every clue clicks into place. Isaiah lays out his wild theory. One mastermind is pulling the strings behind three separate incidents, yet they're all connected. He decides to dig into all three threads, determined to bring Saria and everyone else some real peace of mind. Sylvie chews on his theory for a moment, then nods, sure as day. The fraud case has to be tied to what they're hunting. Istia begged for her help, knowing the guild would soon demand their cooperation in the Viev case. This young man blurts out why the guild would team up with a royal magician. She shoots back that they're bound by their own independent alliance. Roy grills Sylvie about her place in all this, and she answers back, saying the kingdom and the guild team up right there near the forest. Sylvie steps up and reveals her real job, guarding Lumen's walls by holding up the magical monster-repelling barrier. He suspects that weird flaw in the barrier is what let someone slip out and even get back into town. Right as another problem hits, a glittering, crystal-clear object shimmers into existence and slips into her hand. Roy's eyes snap wide as she suddenly recognizes the mysterious object she's now clutching in her hand. She matches the fragments to the eye of the Vuib, right where he cut it down. A lavish inscription reveals it. The eye transforms into a rare magic stone known as a dragon's tear. Roy fires back with questions, and Sylvie lays it out. Most of the magic is already gone. With a grim stare, she drops the truth. Whoever did this must have gulped down that massive power. Roy finally clocks it. The V-Weave he just battled was weak as hell, nowhere near the raw power his fellow magicians can unleash. Sylvie declares that snatching power like that is a huge deal, basically the same as toppling the entire kingdom. He realizes this situation is way more dangerous than he ever guessed. Roy decides he can't bring himself to tell Saria the details because he refuses to put more anxiety on her shoulders. Sylvie suddenly blurts out his real name, Isaiah, and the moment it hits, his whole focus snaps to her like a magnet. He clenches his teeth, hating every second of it, because he's pulling away from the guild, even if the investigation demands it. Sylvie volunteers to slip into the guild alone, swearing she'll bring him every clue she uncovers. She declares she's heading straight for the guild, and Roy wastes no time. He decides to tag along. Roy suddenly snapped to a plan and pushed the idea. Sylvie should stay put, guarding the inn while everything's in danger. With a confident grin, he leans in and lets out his plan, like he just found the perfect move. Sylvie stares at him, and a huge question mark seems to pop up as she tries to wrap her head around his new plan. The story whips over to the Adventurers Guild, its grand, stately doors looming like a challenge. Inside the roaring yield hall, adventurers bustle through their errands, and their voices melt into a steady, low murmur. A blonde receptionist is wringing her hands, furious that ever since the amorph flower was discovered, nothing, absolutely nothing, has made sense. She remembers the terrifying shift. Those monster territories inside the great magical forest have been changing lately. Swamped by overtime, she blurts out that being a receptionist sounds easy, but it definitely is. Her mind instantly whips back to the total chaos of the Mad Bear's stolen armor flower. She laughs to herself, half serious, thinking she might talk the guildmaster into letting her skate out of overtime. Her colleague Aline stares at her with a cold, judging look that screams disapproval. She shot her friend a sharp look, told her to stop the whining and get to work, no excuses. The blonde receptionist scowls and calls Aline cruel for brushing off her complaints. Aline's eyes widened when her colleague called her by her first name, and she immediately fired back, asking if she'd ever mentioned it. Her face flickers with a sharp jolt of surprise and pure, confused disbelief at how familiar it feels. The heavy guild doors groaned as they swung wide, and Roy and Sylvie finally stepped in. Sylvie strides ahead with a calm, serene smile, and a fragrant aura of roses blooms around her. Whispers crash through the crowd as everyone spots the famous genius girl, Sylvie, the royal magician. Beneath Sylvie's smile, a heavy gloom swells. She's tired of being stared at and picked apart nonstop. She watches those careless looks, fear and jealousy twisting in the crowd, and realizes nothing ever really changes. Her mind snapped back to Isaiah. She just knew the same nightmare would land on him the moment people figured out who he really was and his hero status came to light. She's sure they'll break him even worse than they'd ever break her, because his rage makes him a target. Sylvie clenched her silence and swore she'd never tell him the truth. He was the one who killed the demon lord. She knows the truth will crawl out eventually, so she's desperate to shield his peace for as long as she can. That raw memory of his heartfelt plea for her to stay in town hits her like a spark, and her resolve hardens. She snaps back to that moment, seeing him through the tent as the war with the demon lord raged on. The memory flashes him standing alone in the army camp, shut off from everyone, shoulders heavy with the weight he can't escape. Later on, Glenn snaps and demands answers about why Roy suddenly needs a craftsman. Roy grinned and told them, straight-faced, that he needs someone to craft a decoration for him. He insists he just needs one, but Glenn grins and says 2 people is the perfect setup. A cocky smirk flashes across Glenn's face as he shoots out his recommendation. He leans in with a cryptic smile and tells Roy, "You'll get it soon," like the answer is already clawing its way into his future. Roy pulls up to a building that screams house, not some sketchy workshop. He slams a fist on the door and loudly declares, "I'm here," for whoever's on the other side. The door swings open, and there, Luz and Luca come into view. Luz's face lights up as he spots Roy and flashes a grin. Roy is totally dumbstruck, shouting their names with pure, jaw-dropping disbelief. Meanwhile, the guildmaster bellows at a weaver's report from town, ripping into it like it's nonsense. His face twists into disbelief and fury, shocked by the news hitting him like a truck. Fleur blurts that the fight wrecked her chance to assassinate her target, Roy. The guildmaster can't believe it. Can they really just let a man with power to wreck the world run wild? Fleur grabs the moment and demands he be dealt with before he can cause any trouble. She insists he's way too dangerous, and she vows she won't stop watching him. Cold determination hardens in her eyes as she vows that, once the moment finally opens up, she'll end his life. The masked guildmaster grins at Fleur, warning her not to waste time, then he settles in, satisfied. Cut to the Crimson Lion's base, an enormous 5-star impact like a fortress. Fleur flashes a confident thumbs up, breathless with relief. She just pulled the wool over the guildmaster's eyes. She realizes with a jolt that Roy is just too gentle to ever have wanted her dead. Glenn panics that he can't keep Roy safe until his armor is finally repaired. They figured out the guildmaster never sent the V-weave because it would have put him in serious danger. Fleur snaps where's Agnes, and Glenn admits, "I sent her to keep an eye on Roy." A flashback rips us back when Glenn grabs Agnes and begs her to watch over Roy while he's in town. Agnes leans in and whispers to Roy that she's only pretending to keep an eye on him for the guild. She watches with a tense little frown, fully aware she has to play 2 parts. Glenn slaps a tougher job into Agnes's hands, "Watch Luz and Luca, and don't blink." His face tightens as he finally drops his real suspicion that they let the babe go. Agnes jolts in disbelief, staring at him like, "Wait, you really have doubts about us?" He admits he's terrified for their safety too, like, if they're being used, then someone could get hurt fast. Glenn sharply tells her to keep quiet and not tell Roy, because she refuses to drag him down with her worries. Agnes suddenly senses it. Something huge and deadly is about to explode in Lumen. Glenn's grim face says it all. He stares into the distance, and her worst fears finally hit. He's dead sure that something big is about to happen any second. Inside the shop, Roy leans in and quizzes Luz and Luca. Are they couriers, or are they decorators too? He remembers the rumors about their sealing power. People swear it can snatch even dragons right out of the sky. Luca tells them the guild can't fight with ordinary weapons anymore, and that their one-of-a-kind power is the only thing that can save them. Luz grins and admits her real hustle. Making decorations is her second job, and she's the one who designs them. Luca then fires back, asking Roy why he's even here, right as Roy lays out the reason he came. A flashback slams in, one hand clutches 2 dazzling gems, ready to be unveiled like a secret treasure. In his own memories, Roy leans in and asks Sylvie if he can take the Vuaver's eye. Sylvia agrees but points out it's strictly magic, then Roy grins and says he can refill it. He tells everyone he won't be at the end, because he's got more to dig into and the investigation isn't done yet. With those stones now blazing in his hands, he demands, can 2 women's decorations be crafted from this? Right now, Luca freezes in pure shock because he instantly recognizes the rare dragon's tears. Roy's stunned that Luca knows exactly who they are, then Luca drops the truth and confirms, yep, he's the one who makes them. Roy gets hit with a playful tease about grabbing presents for two ladies, and the moment it lands, his face flushes red. While he waits, they slam a wooden mug onto the table right in front of him. Roy, you really saved them back then, so yeah, this time they're giving you their thanks loud and clear. That simple moment detonates into a brutal, jarring flashback. Roy is yanked straight back into a past battle. He's adamant the Shadow Eater escaping wasn't anyone else's problem, it was his fault. He can't stop wondering if, maybe, he actually believes the whole failure was his fault. Luca instantly admits it. This was 100% his screw-up, and Roy has nothing to do with it. Luz stared at Roy in pure shock, blurting that he was seriously one weird dude. She straight up says normal adventurers can't take responsibility. They'll dodge the blame even when they're clearly the ones at fault. A memory flashes. Other adventurers move like vultures, slaughtering monsters before anyone can even grab them. Inside the workshop, Roy snaps at Luz, telling her that the way other adventurers treat her and her brother is downright cruel. Touched by his kindness, Luz steps in and offers to help him level up by capturing monsters for him. Roy's visibly shaken by her heartfelt offer. His eyes go wide as he blurts out his thanks. Then he lowers his gaze in humility, a little smile tugging at his face as pure happiness spills from his words. With his back to them, Roy snapped the truth into place. He said he wasn't the first one to show them kindness. Luz's cheeks heat up as she thinks about how gentle he is, while Luca, her brother, watches the whole moment in deadly silence. She can't believe he still clings to that sweet, naive outlook while they're trapped in a world that's brutally, absurdly cruel. Luca stared back at their past, reliving the sting of being rejected, so hard that it left them with only one choice: trust each other. With a sting in his chest, he realizes too late that they should have searched for other allies they could actually trust, like Glenn's party. He figures their deep-seated mistrust was the exact weight that stalled them from moving forward. The twins huddle side by side as Roy flashes a wave goodbye and strides off down the street. Roy's getting praised with a few careless compliments, and Luca just quietly nods along, acting like he already knows the truth. She can't stop asking herself, what if they'd met him sooner and trusted each other right away? Would their lives have turned out completely different? Luca can only mumble a soft, heart-heavy truth. He has no idea. They dragged out sorrowful laments, convinced that if only they'd done things differently, they never would have set that disastrous mistake loose. She's haunted by the V-Leaves' heartbreaking death, right down to the cruel price their past choices forced on them. Uncertainty blooms across her face, and she whips around to her brother, demanding, "So what do we do now?" Luca stares his sister down with a calm, serious face, his resolve rock solid. He swears he'll stick to her lead until the end, alive or dead, while a frantic memory of Agnes flickers through his mind. The twin brothers huddle on the street, shoulder to shoulder, bound by the heavy choice they've just made. He stared at the truth in front of him and realized, too late, that even this deep realization about himself might already be slipping out of his reach. He shuts his eyes, lets out a resigned breath, and fully accepts the brutal truth staring back at him. A chilling message slices through the air, saying they can't ever return to how things used to be. The story snaps to nighttime, where the windows blaze with warm light while the stars glitter overhead. Roy beams as he hands Saria a stunning, ornate pendant, then leans in, "Is this really for you?" watching her face light up in shock. He stammers out that he heard wearing it could boost her business and rake in even more profit. A sudden memory slams into Saria, her mother, and that priceless red pendant she used to own. Roy remembers Saria's childhood tale, how she lost a precious item while they were out playing. Saria tracked down that tiny detail he'd forgotten for ages. He leans in and asks if she'll take the heartfelt gift he's been pouring his soul into. Tears of gratitude shimmering in her eyes, Saria beams as she joyfully accepts his offer. Roy's face lights up with a warm smile as he realizes she actually accepted the gift he put real thought into. Saria finally admits she gets what her mom meant, and Roy immediately stumbles into the funniest, most flustered panic imaginable. The two lock eyes in this painfully awkward closeness, and Saria shoots him a look like, "Are you serious?" after his reaction. Kite slams into the scene with a vicious screech on his violin, then snaps that Roy has gone way too far with his affections. He screams in pure terror when the truth hits. Roy isn't just involved, he's got a pendant too, tied to Saria's mother. The bard erupts into a cackle, taunting Roy for openly having a thing for older women. The tale plunges into the guild's underground prison, dark, torchlit, and crawling with tension. The doctor slumps in his cell, drowning in dark thoughts, his face worn to the bone. He whispers a desperate prayer to the goddess, begging her to bring his dead wife back. In another cell, the scarred warrior Jerome plants his anger like a seed, churning with raw dissatisfaction. He glares at the magical seal strapped to his chest because it keeps his full power locked tight. He swears he could have taken Roy at full power if he'd just pushed himself, no holding back. Footsteps pound closer through the cold stone dungeon, echoing louder with every step. Jerome snaps his head up, startled by the sound of someone closing in on his cell. With a sharp grin, he quips whether he's finally getting shipped to the Clary's headquarters. A voice crackles from the corridor and tells him his transfer got delayed, right when he thought he was finally getting out. Two white-robed figures step into view, and it hits, this whole chaos. They're the ones who summoned the Velev. Jerome glares with steel-eyed suspicion, grilling them hard, demanding to know if they're the doctor's accomplices. They cut him off and insist he call them comrades, because they're marching toward one shared divine goal. Jerome side-eyes their cryptic clue about the next full moon, and you can practically feel the tension rising. A hooded figure nods, saying their plan is locked in and the next full moon will kick it off. They announce their final move, burn Lumen City to the ground. The next morning, cheerful birdsong bursts through the air outside the inn, like the world's already cheering for what's coming next. Roy juts his arms out and stretches inside his room, then a transport circle detonates with a brilliant flash across the floor. He's stunned when magic crashes into his world, out of nowhere. Sylvie pops into existence and declares she's going to report everything about the recent incident. Roy's caught shirtless and instantly panics when she bursts into his private room out of nowhere. Fresh out of her outfit, Sylvie kicks off her report, having dug up everything she can from the guild. She reveals the stolen Amour flower was handed straight to the monstrous Buev. The careful, meticulous details scream that this crime was orchestrated by a truly cunning mastermind. Sylvie clocks the doctor's fraud case as way too sloppy to possibly be tied to anything. Roy instantly clocks it. The doctor's "I needed the flower" story smells like a total lie. He remembers this. Saria and her mom both refuse to believe the doctor's got a grudge against them. Sylvie's face tightens with seriousness as she scans the few remaining motives left in play. She drops a chilling theory. Saria and her mother aren't just caught in the middle, they're the real target. She brushes it off right away, making herself stop and not leap to conclusions, at least not yet. Sylvie can't help but wonder, what could a plotter possibly hope to get by attacking the poor innkeepers who just run their little place in peace? Roy nods along, convinced a noble's got a reason lurking in the shadows, because a commoner wouldn't. He tells everyone that his own hunt through the slave and storage markets turned up absolutely nothing. No leads, no answers, just dead ends. Sylvie snaps him out of it, urging him to flip his strategy and dig into the doctor's real motives instead. She keeps it quiet, but she's determined to dig into Saria's past so Roy can finally stop worrying. She shrugs it off and tells everyone that Glenn and Fleur, the assassin girl, showed up just to apologize. Roy exhales in relief, grateful that their run-in didn't explode into violence. Sylvie leans in and tells him the truth. Fleur isn't really an assassin, he's just putting on an act to shield Sylvie from the guild. Roy's chest tightens. He finally understands that his new friends aren't just hanging out, they're going to battle to protect him. Sylvia finally admits that Glenn looks genuinely trustworthy, and that's when everything clicks, revealing why Roy decided to stay. Roy can't believe it. Sylvie is getting rare praise from the same people who usually can't stand her. He decides to dig into the doctor and Jerome's social ties because he's hunting for the real motive. Right as he swings the door open to bolt, Saria blurts his name, calling him back. With a broom in hand, she beamed and asked, all cheerful, if he's heading out again today. Roy flashes a grin, waving her off as he swears he'll be back by night, just like always, full and ready. Saria's face shifts into a worried, thoughtful stare as she watches him. She cuts him off mid-turn, desperate to squeeze in one more truth before he walks out the door. She leans in and pleads, asking if there's any way she can take some of the weight off his shoulders. Roy can't believe it when she steps up with a straight-faced, heartfelt offer to help. Saria tells you that, because she runs the inn, she can't help but catch rumors swirling all over town. Roy's eyes go wide with pure shock as she blurts out crucial information that changes everything. She presses, asking if that new rumor is tied to what happened to the doctor. She spills a wild rumor about a monster roaming the town, claiming it can get its hands on a mysterious 7-colored flower. Roy realizes she's been hunting the truth for his sake the whole time, and her smile turns warm and bright. She nails it. He stayed silent just to dodge the worrying and keep her from hearing it. She tells him she just couldn't sit still, so she started digging, gathering every piece of info she could to be useful. With this fresh lead in hand, Roy grills the doctor about who he knows and which friends are in his circle. He hears it straight from her. That doctor once had a wife, but somehow zero friends. She remembers just a year ago, the doctor's wife was taken by a terrible illness. She remembers how, right after his wife died, he threw himself into a religious group. Roy stops cold and recalls that doctor's statue of a goddess, then pieces the clues together like they're glowing answers. She drops one last jaw-dropping detail about the wife's late adventurer and his son. She shoots out an apology, admitting that's the only thing she knows about what happened. Roy gathers the info he needs, flashes a polite smile, and shoots him a heartfelt thank you. A few hours later, the story slams into a massive, grand church sitting right in the heart of Lumen. With a thunderous creak, Roy shoves the ornate doors wide open and strides into the room. He collapses in exhaustion, crushed by the sheer number of religious denominations flooding this world. He's debating whether to dig into Jerome, but then, right in the middle of his thoughts, a voice he knows all too well cuts through the air. Magician Agnes brightens the whole scene as she cheerfully waves at him, her radiant smile saying hello before he even gets a word out. Swearing her timing is dead on, she ropes him into lunch so she can tell him something that can't wait. A gorgeous table snaps into view, packed with mouth-watering dishes and gleaming drinks, all laid out like a feast meant to steal your breath. Over a steaming meal, Agnes presses Jerome for details about his friends, while Roy tears through the food with an appetite so huge, it's almost unreal. She drops a heartbreaking bombshell. Jerome's entire party was wiped out a year ago. Roy's eyes fly wide with pure shock as the revelation hits him like a thunderclap. Agnes tells them that Jerome used to be one of Lumen's two strongest adventurers, right there with Glenn. He's shocked because in his head, Jerome has only ever been that terrifying A-ranker. She confirms the truth. Roy's bout wasn't against some unstoppable monster, because that man was way weaker than the version he used to be. After his party got wiped out, Jerome crumbled, soul and strength sealed shut by the guild. Roy finally gets why that guard felt so much weaker than his fancy, high-rank reputation promised. Agnes wistfully remembers that before tragedy struck, Jerome was a genuinely kind soul, just like Glenn. Roy figured that if Jerome ever reached A-rank, it had to be because his character was solid. He blurts out, could a warrior as ruthless and strong as Glenn really have crushed the ruler of the West? Agnes points out that luck has a say in all this, and even the ruler didn't escape it, left battered with injuries that lingered. Roy clings to the wounded beast's brutal scars, and it hits him hard. Jerome was the one who fought it. He demands to know why Jerome threw himself at that creature, and Agnes drops a shocking answer that leaves him reeling. His jaw drops in shock as he finally sees Jerome's real motive laid bare. The tragic timelines finally line up. Jerome's party and the doctor's wife were dead a full year ago. Then boom, one more massive detail drops. Jerome had a son too, and that boy was an adventurer. Roy slams his fist on the table, fuming as he demands answers about Jerome's family. Agnes looks startled and blurts out that there's an unwritten rule: no one digs into an adventure's messy past. Roy stares downward, wondering if he's sprinting to conclusions again a little too fast. The whole group agrees. If the doc and Jerome are family, then hiring him is the obvious move. Agnes stares at the armor flower and demands, can it really bring the dead back to life? Then she shuts it down. No, that's impossible. They figured that flower was just a decoy, meant to hide an attack nobody could trace, all aimed at Saria's family. Shaken by that twisted motive, Roy finally cracks and admits he has zero clue what's really happening. He can't wrap his head around why some plotter would bother attacking a lowly innkeeper. He jokes to himself that Saria might secretly be a princess, then he snaps it off and dismisses the whole idea. Suddenly it hits him, one sharp new idea, and he realizes the key detail he'd been missing the whole time. His thoughts snap back to the crushing mystery of who Saria's late father really was. Suddenly a fresh memory hits him and Agnes running into the guild receptionist, Aline. Roy tells Agnes that back when her lunch break was over, they'd bumped into Aline completely by accident, almost like fate. Agnes eagerly tried to pull Aline into a friendly chat. Aline politely, but with ice-cold finality, cut the conversation short and blamed a crushing workload. She stormed off, and Roy and Agnes froze in this brutally awkward silence. Roy's gaze locks onto Aline, and a fresh, uneasy suspicion starts clawing its way into his mind. In the present day, he leans in and asks Agnes, so are you and Aline really close? Agnes flashes him a coy little smile and asks, like she's teasing, if that's really how she's coming across to him. Flustered out of his mind, Roy blurts out a fast apology, swearing he never meant to pry. Her smile drops and she steels herself, ready to finally speak the truth about their past. She finally opens up, saying it straight, spilling the whole messy backstory of how their complicated relationship started. Flashback slams into the story and shows a line, back when she and another girl were glued at the hip, inseparable childhood best friends. Hearing about childhood friends rips open Roy's memories, like a flashback to Luna and Isaiah. Agnes finally admits it. Elaine has been pushing her away for ages. Roy watches in stunned silence, his face tight with worry and genuine sympathy. He leans in and reminds her, like it's the most important truth in the world, that they were childhood friends long before all this. With a gentle smile, he tells Selene that she's probably just scared to step up to her right now. Agnes's eyes light up. His thoughtful, encouraging words hit her right in the heart. He can't help but look at life with a heavy heart, because you never know when this might be the last time you get to see someone. His words slam into Agnes like a wrecking ball, and her eyes snap wide with pure, stunned horror. With her memories fading, she reaches out with all she's got, just as her two young friends sprint away into the distance. As a kid, she sobbed and begged them not to leave her when she needed them the most. A brutal thug yanks her hair, and as another girl screams their names, pure terror takes over. Still rattled by that painful memory, Agnes slowly nods and quietly agrees with Roy's words. With a grateful smile, she thanks him from the bottom of her heart for his kindness and encouragement. Later on, Agnes pops into cheerful thoughts about dessert, and Roy's jaw drops at her appetite. Right there, the guildmaster, towering and grimacing, keeps watch over them, eyes locked on the whole scene. As Agnes strides down the street, she feels it. Someone's trailing her, close enough to feel the heat of their steps. The guildmaster's shadow looms just behind her, dark and ominous, like trouble waiting to strike. She whips around and gives him a polite smile, but you can see the strain underneath the greeting. The guildmaster cuts her off with a deep, commanding voice, ordering her to meet him tonight. A cold, sinister sneer creeps across the guildmaster's face, like he's already savoring someone's downfall. Agnes's face sets in stubborn defiance, but one sweaty bead spills her fear. She flat out rejects his demand, then tells him she doesn't need his patronage anymore. He clamps his vice-like grip around her wrist and growls that she'd better stop acting so damn self-important. He turns to blackmail, threatening Glenn that he'll expose her past as a prostitute. Agnes wears shame like armor, sinking into resignation as she can't find a single word to answer. She declares, loud and fearless, that Glenn's opinion of her won't shift no matter what he learns. The guildmaster cranks up the pressure, promising to expose her friends' real identities. He blurts out that Fleur's a defector and that Glenn is marked for assassination. With sadistic delight, he grins and promises that assassins will come, again and again, to kill them both. Agnes freezes on the spot, cornered by his brutal ultimatum, no escape, no mercy. As he stalked off, he spit out a nasty goodnight to her, his rage burning hot as the guy stayed there. Shadow cloaks her face, and in her eyes churns a storm of deep rage mixed with crushing despair. That night, the guildmaster's massive mansion loomed in total silence, lit up only by the glittering stars above. A fist slams down hard on the massive wooden door of his private office. An attendant swings the door wide and shouts that the guest has finally arrived. He gapes in pure terror at the guildmaster's grotesque, brutally murdered body. The next morning, chirping birds burst into the sky outside the inn, filling the air like the world was screaming, "Go time." Roy's stuck in his room, pacing and wondering why Sylvie hasn't messaged him, then a knock slams through the silence. He's totally stunned when Glenn, Agnes, and Fleur are standing at his doorstep, all of them looking grim and wrecked. Glenn slams a hand up to shut him down and demands he stay silent, because whatever he's about to say, he needs it heard. He bursts in with explosive news. Turns out the guildmaster was murdered the night before. Glenn keeps going, and the shocker hits hardest, because the real twist is who they hauled in for the crime. He drops the bombshell. Sylvie got arrested for murder, and Roy erupts, screaming her name, not believing a single word. In a freezing cell, Sylvie stares ahead with unbreakable grit, convinced she's been framed. Cuffed hands clenched, she crashes them against the bars and screams that they framed her. She's devastated. Her magic is sealed tight, so she can't warn Roy or Isaiah at all. She's convinced her theory is dead on. Saria's family wasn't just collateral, they were the real target. Her thoughts snap back to a childhood memory, the kind of rumor that hit like a punch and left her stunned. She drifts back to the night her parents argued about a noble heir who vanished with their love, then slipped away to a border town. As a kid, she pressed her ear to the door and overheard their big, ambitious talk. Her parents snapped at the scandal like it was their junior family's golden ticket to climb higher in status. This cranked the pressure on young Sylvie to the max, so much so that it reshaped her whole life from that moment on. Locked in her cell, Sylvie suddenly realizes her enemies took things way too far. Maybe they're not just after her, maybe they're trying to end her. A story she'd completely erased, an elopement to a border town, snaps back into her memory out of nowhere. She figures out that if the runaway heir ever had a kid, that child would be Sarah's age right now. It hits you, Sarah's noble blood isn't just a title, it's the reason someone wants to hunt her down. The story kicks outside the Luna Inn, right where the mystery's heart starts to beat. Roy sinks onto his bed like a defeated boxer, while his companions loom in the doorway with grim faces, watching in silence. Glenn drops the bombshell that Guildmaster Gilmus was murdered with ice magic, and now every clue points straight at a magician. He keeps going, pointing out that Agnes was on the suspect list, but the moment her alibi checked out, they let her go. Fleur drops the brutal bombshell. They all watched his master, Sylvie, get dragged away. Roy's eyes go wide as he blurts out, "Is it just my master, or are there any other suspicious people around?" Glenn admits he was praying Roy could clear Sylvie's name, because in his mind, only a magician could be behind that killing. Then he pressed Roy right to the edge, demanding to know exactly where he'd been on the night of the murder. With a face twisted in anguish, Roy admits he can't give Sylvie an alibi. Glenn tightens his fist and fires off the cold, damning truth. Ice magic is Sylvie's specialty. Tension crackles in the air as his hand clamps down on his clothes, like he's trying to hold on for dear life. Roy erupts in a furious defense, snapping that Sylvia's too damn skilled to leave behind those obvious traces. Glenn can't see the reason, but Fleur slams the truth down, because a motive is there and it's real. Roy blurts out he's confused by her claim, and her companions stare back, stunned and speechless. Fleur reveals that Gilmus's secretary spilled the truth. He'd been seeing Sylvia as a threat to Roy. That shocking news hits Roy like a punch to the gut, leaving him frozen, scrambling to even wrap his mind around this deadly new threat. Agnes tells them the Guildmaster was a master at digging up secrets, like Fleur's past. Glenn figures that guy probably had a whole pile of enemies out there, all nursing a grudge. With a heavy heart, Agnes is dead sure someone framed her master for that crime. Roy can't stop thinking, who in the world could have cooked up a scheme that twisted? He drops into a deep, troubled silence, racing through every possible outcome. A wild spark of an idea detonates in his mind, and his expression hardens with ironclad resolve. Right then, Agnes burst in with a bold plan and demanded everyone's help. Roy glances at her and breaks into full attention, like he's ready to hear every word. Agnes finally meets his gaze, ready to lay out a plan to clear Sylvie's name. Their whole scheme barrels them straight into the towering grand building of the Adventurers Guild. Inside the hall, chatter explodes. Most adventurers are dead sure the royal magician is behind it all. Glenn tells Roy to follow the plan, then hands him this part of the mission like, "Trust me and trust yourself." Roy strides up to the front desk and politely asks the receptionist if she can lean over so he can see Sylvie. With a heavy, sorrowful look on her face, Aline apologetically shuts down Roy's plea to meet his master. The young adventurer leans in, eyes locked tight, and the moment that refusal lands, his face hardens like stone. He snaps his hand down on the desk with a thunderous thud. His thunderous outburst rips through the guild hall, and every single head snaps toward him in an instant. With eyes blazing, he snaps that they need to take him straight to the one who's really in charge. Aline relents, looking oddly quiet, urged him and his crew to hold up inside. The whole group huddles in a private lounge, holding their breath, waiting for Gil's decision to drop. Aline rushes back and reports her superior's condition. Now they have one job first: check the magical barrier. Roy fires back at a weird request, while Aline braces herself, ready to drop even more bombshells. Then she throws another bombshell. Now Sylvie's being blamed for summoning the Weaver. Roy demands answers, and suddenly he learns the guild suspects she tampered with the barrier. The young man is horrified by how heavy and how brutal this new accusation is. Aline lays out the next move, one spotless inspection, and Sylvie's name gets wiped clean. Roy instantly snaps into action, seizing the brutal new assignment with fresh fire in his heart. A fierce look of determination locks onto his face the moment the plan is set. Glenn, his companion, just listens, jaw clenched, eyes hard, taking in every grim word like it could cost him everything. Aline sharply spells out every condition of the mission, line by line. She makes it crystal clear. Roy and Agnes will run the exam, and she's right there watching every second. Right up against the city wall, Roy stops in his tracks and marvels at how wild and truly unique that barrier really is. A bead of sweat forms as he struggles to wrap his mind around its mind-bending complexity. The guild receptionist leans in and asks if he's finally cracked the secret. As he prowls along the wall, he explains that only a freak level of magic can handle that kind of selective power. He blurts out, "So, how many magicians does it really take to make something like this?" Aline drops the truth. This wasn't one magician's doing. It was the handiwork of generations of royal sorcerers. But then she drops the truth. Its real power only answers to one rare, unbelievably talented person. Roy's jaw drops when he realizes the culprit isn't from this generation at all. It's someone who lived back in the one before Sylvie's. Staring at that mind-bending wall, he wondered, could this barrier actually be changed at all? Knowing only Sylvie can make it right, he swears he'll prove her innocence, no matter what it takes. The whole party huddles together in the open field, tense and ready to kick off their investigation. A shadowy voice hisses out an order from nowhere, and Roy snaps into action like he's heard a threat meant just for him. In the blink of an eye, he and the two women get zapped straight onto a glowing magic circle. Glenn and Fleur stand across the circle, eyes wide with alarm as everything suddenly shifts. Ghostly hands burst up from the dark water, groping toward a terrified Roy. A young man's eyes snap wide with pure terror, and it hits him. This is really happening. A wild title card slams onto the screen, and suddenly you're dropped into a surreal dimension, the sorceress's world. The very fabric of this new reality crackles, then shatters with violent, unstoppable fury. In the end, Saria, still young and flustered, keeps blurting out apologies after she smashes a plate. A flamboyant bard strides in, dazzling everyone, and offers to crush the chaos with a breathtaking ballad. His music comes out as a brutal screech, and Saria's mortified, she can't even look away. Kneeling beside the shattered plate, Saria feels that sharp dread creeping up on her fast. A dread grips her the moment she clutches her hands together, shaking with worry. Through the window, she leans close and whispers Roy's name, because she can feel danger closing in. A long, thin streak flashes on screen, slicing the video into the next scene. A shoe slams into a murky, syrupy puddle, splashing everywhere, just like her gut-wrenching premonition warned. A woman in a witch's hat stands alone, swallowed by absolute despair, with no light left anywhere. She's trapped in a pitch-black sea, and countless hands surge up from below like they're clawing for her life. She can't shake the feeling that this place is basically a living sketch of her own heart. She shuts her eyes, and right away she can feel it. Something is terribly wrong in this dead, empty world. Panic hits her as the truth clicks. She recognizes the creator behind this horrific place. A cloaked figure grips a staff and blinks into existence right in front of her, popping out in a burst of blinding light. Aline grins with pure malice while Agnes screams her name, crushed by betrayal. A young man is sinking under the water, bubbles blasting out of his mouth in a muffled, desperate gasp. Roy gets flung helplessly through the surreal, bubble-packed void of the mental world, tumbling like he has zero control. He realizes the bizarre dimension is the sorceress's mind, an endless sea of blood. He knows he has to steer that barrier fast, because if he doesn't, he'll drown for sure. A spooky, floating voice booms that in this world, his magic power gets cut in half. He snaps into focus and hurls his defensive spell fast, because if he hesitates, it's over. His eyes blow wide when he spots something uncanny bubbling into shape inside the liquid. A blazing complex of crystal forms right in front of him, shimmering like a nightmare in the bloody sea. In the real world, Agnes panics and blurts out to Aline, demanding to know where her friends have vanished to. Aline coldly claims she hurled them straight into a sea of blood. Agnes's jaw drops in horror when Aline blurts out the brutal truth. Every single one of them is dead, for good. Aline smiles through the fear as she declares her augmented power will crush her enemies. No chance, not a single one. She leans in and tells the broken Agnes that the despair is over. She doesn't have to worry anymore. Aline shoots her hand out and declares, loud and clear, that Agnes is the companion she's chosen. She hammers on their shared past, and the reminder hits Agnes like a punch. This world's unfairness is brutal. Decades ago, a quiet mountain village stood alone, the only calm place left in a world that never played fair. The tale rips straight into a brutal flashback. Bandits storm the village and torch everything to the ground. The aftermath is brutal, dead adults everywhere, while the rest are dragged away as captives after the attack. A young girl sobs for her parents, her tiny hands clamped hard around the prison bars. Another captive girl sobs uncontrollably, clinging to one desperate dream, to make it back home to her village. A long-eared elf girl strides up to the two brand-new kids in their cell, and the moment she shows up, their shock spikes. The three shackled girls, now trapped side by side, stand crammed in a cold, stark prison cell. The cheerful elf grins and tells them, "Sure, I'm young, but I act like your big sister." She spills their magical gift to them and secretly trains them, right under the captor's nose, while he's away. When they question how she knows, she flashes a proud grin and says, "Easy, I'm an elf." One of the girls collapses into despair, convinced her talent is worthless now that she's still trapped as a slave. The elf fires back with fierce conviction, insisting that special abilities can skyrocket your status. She grabs their hands and swears they can't give up, no matter how many times they're bought and sold. At the Lumen slave market, a young elf girl gets marched up in front of a roaring sea of people. The auctioneer breaks into a hype-filled pitch about her greatness, slamming the opening bid at 50 gold coins. In the middle of the crowd, those wealthy bidders shout out higher and higher prices for her, fast and furious, as if they're racing to win. Trapped behind their cage bars, the other two girls stare in horror as the bidding spirals out of control. A sudden shout of "Wait" rips through the crowd, and the whole auction screeches to a stop. A crew of armed adventurers storm in, calling the slavers out as criminals and roaring for the captives' release. The auctioneer is left wide-eyed and rattled when a bold, heroic newcomer crashes in at the last second. The adventurers catch the slaver and haul him straight into guild custody. Two girls' faces ignite with pure joy because they think this is it, they're finally free. But in Lumen, as orphans, they had nowhere to go, so they got forced to beg for survival. Huddled shoulder to shoulder in the pounding rain, they suffered something even darker than slavery. Their tiniest but oldest ally, the elf, keeps cheering them on, fighting for them to make it through the day. Their frantic pleas got snuffed out the moment a gang of thugs swarmed in and started swinging. A girl gets snatched away, kicking and screaming as she begs her friends not to leave her behind. A thug yanks Agnes by the hair while she sobs, screaming for her friend Aline. The other girls desperately begged the indifferent passersby for help, hoping someone would finally stop. A girl gets violently shoved to the ground, and they spit out "filthy beggar" like it's meant to break her. Tears streak down her face as desperation claws at her voice, and she begs someone, anyone, to help. She howls in heartbreak as the truth hits. There's nothing they can do, and they can't save their friend. A sickening splash of blood hits the scene, and you realize their companion has been brutally murdered off-panel. Right now, Aline's face sits icy and unbreakable beneath her sorceress' hood. Agnes watches, and the weight of their shared trauma shows in every bit of her face. Aline spills the darkest chapter of her childhood. Getting saved just flips the nightmare into something even worse. Agnes stares at Aline and blurts, "How in the world did you escape that brothel alone and survive?" Aline's lips curl into a faint, knowing smile as she starts to explain. Just when her hope was about to die, a tall, shadowy figure in a cloak swept in, mysterious, silent, and somehow saving her from total despair. This person didn't just hand her powerful magic, he also sealed in her mind a dream so irresistible it felt like destiny. Agnes, tears carving paths down her face, blurted, "What kind of dream could possibly do that?" Aline rallies a squad of comrades, people crushed, despised, and pushed to hate the cruel world they're stuck in. That dream hits Agnes like a gut punch, and her face twists in pure, terrifying horror. She jolts in horror when she realizes Luce and Luca, her friends, were exploited for this exact scheme. Agnes trembles and blurts out, "Aline, did you kill the guildmaster?" With a calm, confident smile, Aline leans in and simply admits, yeah, she really was the killer. Agnes fires back, demanding to know why she framed the imprisoned Sylvie for the crime. An alien insists that Agnes, since she's a noble magician, should have gotten Sylvie's spot. The accusation blasts Agnes wide-eyed, frozen in pure shock and total disbelief. She spits out the story of her brutal grind, furious that everyone knows how hard she fought to earn her spot as a royal magician candidate. A lean, sharp suggestion hangs in the air. Agnes must loathe Sylvie, and she's gone as far as wanting the guildmaster dead. She clenches her teeth, staring into the mystery. How in the world has Agnes never once pushed back against him? She swears up and down that Agnes is nothing like the other girls, those ones only butter the guildmaster. Her calm shatters in an instant as she screams that she killed him for Agnes' sake. A memory flashes. Agnes leans in close, spilling how the guildmaster's vile threats have been creeping into Aline's life. When the world turned black, a sobbing Agnes stumbled into Aline's arms and clung to her last shred of hope, her only friend. Aline drops the bombshell that her crew will destroy the world soon, and she offers Agnes a way out. From the pitch-black sea, skeletal hands claw up through the darkness, screaming the despair crushing Agnes right now. Aline thrusts her hand toward her, swearing she'll help her claw her way out of this dying world. She grabs Agnes and invites her to move in, because together, they're about to build a whole new world. One lone hand hovers in the air, trembling between saying yes to the dark offer or slamming it shut forever. Agnes snaps into action and violently slaps Aline's hand away, roaring with pure defiance. She snaps shut the idea like it's garbage, insisting none of this was ever done for her, absolutely not. Her raw, emotional outburst explodes so hard the whole scene shatters. Rage floods her eyes as she sobs and screams at Aline for hurting her friends. She puts her whole heart into it and swears she never wanted anything like this. Aline stares in silence, her confidence cracks, and cold shock slams onto her face. She murmurs that Agnes turning down her offer is a real tragedy. She swears she'll drag Agnes to her friends, then blasts a magical attack to make sure it happens. A savage slash of magic cuts through the ghostly hands, and Agnes is saved before they can touch her. Aline snaps her head around, stunned out of her mind by that sudden, unstoppable burst of power. The ghostly hands shrivel into harmless droplets the moment the whole attack gets shut down. Roy and the whole crew burst in, right on time to rip her out of danger. Roy slams into Aline's space with his attack, blasting her back and carving out a safe pocket between them. Agnes watches in relief as Glenn and Fleur stay right beside her, completely safe. Tears of pure relief poured down her cheeks as she finally realized everyone was safe. Roy storms up to Aline, shuts her down by saying he heard it all, and blasts her with the accusations for every crime. Elena froze dead in her tracks, eyes widening as she finally realized she'd been fully exposed. She snaps, demanding to know how they somehow clawed their way out of her earlier trap. A flashback kicks in, and Roy steps up in front of his party, talking to them right before the confrontation erupts. Sylvie inched up to the group, nerves shaking as she quietly begged them for help with her big idea. She shoots Roy a look like she's warning him her plan could seriously upset Agnes. Roy lays it all out to Sylvie, and explaining their investigation and how it all ties back to the 3 connected incidents. He raises 3 fingers like it's a smoking gun. Only a true mastermind could be orchestrating all of this. He's convinced the mastermind didn't just plan everything. He also set up the guildmaster's murder and the whole trap that landed Sylvie in custody. Glenn figures the real mission was simple: keep Sylvie from digging up the truth. Roy lays out their 2-pronged investigation for everyone, and Sylvie quietly works from inside the guild. Fleur sucked in a breath, suddenly realizing exactly how the mastermind could have been tracking Sylvie's every move. Roy and Glenn lock eyes and realize the guild has a secret informant hiding right inside it. Everyone at the party agrees on one brutal truth: pulling off the theft of that evidence would take a real insider. Sylvie drops a bombshell. She's got someone in mind who could be the mastermind's next pawn. A wave of heartbreak hits Agnes' face as she instantly recognizes exactly who it is. Sylvie slams her suspicions into place and points at the receptionist, Aline, as the one who's been feeding the info. Roy snaps, asking why Elena's getting targeted again, still reeling from the brand new information. Glenn remembers how they got the flower request, and he rushed to report the VUAP to her. Sylvie blurts out that Aline's knowledge of the cure medicine wasn't just good, it was painfully specific, like she knew the curse release formula by heart. Roy locks eyes with Sylvie, and the moment he does, he can feel there's way more hiding behind her suspicious claims. Sylvie flat out declares that if there's a spy hiding in the mix, then nobody gets off the hook, everyone is a suspect. She leans in and demands a yes from Roy while he talks to Agnes, then, with no way around it, he confirms the brutal truth. Fleur leans in to soothe Agnes, brushing off her bond with Elena as nothing more than a forgotten old acquaintance. Glenn snaps everyone back to the mission and leans toward Roy, demanding to know their plan. Inside a rustic room, plans are blazing to life as the Adventurers Guild stirs with something huge on the way. Roy lays out his plan, setting the stage to force Sylvie's innocence to be proven. Glenn gets it, this dangerous scheme is all about pushing the informant to make the next move. Roy admits that if their plan lands, a full-blown battle is practically guaranteed. With a confident grin, Glenn snaps into action and rallies his crew, swearing they'll fight side by side. When Roy finally faces Aline, he bluntly tells her they've been watching her closely since the very beginning. A flashback slams the truth in. Everyone was set up for an ambush, trapped inside a magic circle already drawn for them. Aline is left reeling when they realize they can slam up barriers instantly. No chanting, no incantation at all. Her memories flash back to her real scheme: trap the others, then convert Agnes. She can't believe it. Why would a receptionist like her be the one they'd even suspect? A memory kicks in, and Roy can't shake the feeling she somehow knew about expensive curse-release medicine. He digs up every sharp detail she spilled about curses during that fake elixir investigation. Every incident bristled with advanced magic, screaming that an expert had their hands all over it. Roy clocks it instantly. She knows the curses spoke firsthand, not some shaky rumor passed around. Clutching her staff, Aline gets caught. Her deception cracks wide open, and her whole plan collapses. She stands there and declares, "Even in a sorceress's world, I still have the upper hand." Her confidence crumbles instantly as her eye pops wide, and pure shock and disbelief hit her like a wrecking ball. Pale white petals start floating through the air, and you feel the moment everything is about to change. The world whirs and warps, then Roy stands alone in a giant field of sun-kissed flowers, frozen in awe. Elena's horrified outburst cuts the air. She demands to know what the heck is going on. Roy just watches with cold calm, the mastermind behind this strange, beautiful new reality. He tells you he snagged Magic's core and rewired the world's power so it answered only to him. Aline's face drops as the horror hits. She's hit with a crushing disadvantage, and it's way too late to pretend otherwise. She gasps because it hits her. He didn't just summon power, he forged his own terrifying world of the fiend. Roy leans in, asks her to atone for her sins, and makes it crystal clear he refuses to hurt a single soul. Her eyes flare wide with disbelief at his mercy, and she snaps, calling him naive. She snorts at his kindness, especially when a relentless enemy like her shows up and refuses to back down. Screaming that his naivety will be the end of him, she explodes with her full power. She snaps into action and hurls her spell, Nightmare Prison, straight at him. Roy's got to move. His companion yells a broken, panic-soaked warning, begging him to get out of the way. A brutal beam of dark energy crashes into its target with a gut-punch thud. Trapped inside a crystal prison, Roy listens as his friends' voices start to slip away. "ISSA!" The scream rips through the air, jolting him so hard he gets yanked from one reality straight into the next. His eyes burst wide open, stunned so hard he can't even make sense of what he's seeing. He jolts upright in bed, stunned to see two figures looming right in front of him. He spots his childhood friends, Kite and Luna, up there with worried faces staring down at him. Still spinning in his head, he demanded, "Why are you in my room?" They told him, "We're here to wake you, because you can't stop tossing and turning." Isaiah freezes in place, frantically chasing the last scraps of his dream before they vanish. He goes quiet for a beat, and the details of that nightmare start vanishing fast, slipping right out of his mind. He waves it off as some silly fantasy dream, one he's already slipped out of his mind. Later, his mom rushes to his friends and apologizes for making them wait. Isaiah shoots his mom a quick goodbye before he and his friends bolt out for school. Kite stops mid-route and blurts out, "Is Mom okay?" because the last thing he can stomach is her missing the ceremony. Isaiah grins and tells her he's finally breathing easy, since he's safe and sound in high school now. Kaitsukashiro strides in, confident, good-looking, and impossible to miss. Luna Tsukashiro, his bright, cheerful twin sister, bursts onto the scene right beside him. A sudden flashback shows the three tiny babies, inseparable friends from the very day they were born. The story snaps back to the same old face of their high school building. Inside the dojo, Luna slams down a crushing, game-changing strike in her kendo match. Upperclassmen stare in disbelief as her talent floors them, because she doesn't just play well, she straight up beats the team captain. A younger Asai watched her practice with a soft, admiring smile that said, "I'm totally captivated by you." Luna beams back at you, gripping her kendo mask like a trophy after nailing her practice. He can't forget how he praised her for her insane skill. She was a national champion even in middle school. A gorgeous violin melody spills out of a classroom, snatching everyone's attention in an instant. Luna snaps her eyes up right away and realizes the music is blasting from the orchestra club. She locks eyes on her brother Kite and feels his crushing power pour out through that solo. Isaiah can't believe how the twins seem to share one gut-level connection that just asterisk clicks without them even trying. Luna beams, totally amazed that a first-year student can pull off a solo like that. Isaiah stews over how he doesn't have the talent his famous friends flaunt. He swears he's nothing special, just a regular kid who's crazy about the gardening club. Luna's jaw drops when she finds out morning glories are his absolute favorite flower. He tells her his obsession isn't random, it's because of their special flower language. He lights up and breaks down why tomorrow is totally refreshing, in the best possible way. He jolts, gasping as it hits him. He's been rambling about his own interests again. Luna sits there patiently, and with a warm, gentle smile, she urges him to keep going. He turns red with embarrassment, realizing he talks that much only because she's actually listening to him. A flashback hits him hard. His childhood friends stand shoulder to shoulder, throwing themselves in front of bullies and refusing to let him get hurt. The school day finally slams shut, and the whole building goes silent beneath the evening sky. Fresh off school, Isaiah heads home and brings up the twins' upcoming shared birthday. Kite tells everyone to skip the usual drama and meet up somewhere to celebrate, because last year was a total disaster. Flashback hits, and they're in the middle of a heated debate about video games. Then it flips into this warm, happy memory of how close they were. They chatted with big smiles about their next moves, straight up brushing off karaoke as way too plain. Isaiah smirks to himself, savoring the hopeful promise of the morning glories. He clings to the hope that these quiet, peaceful days will never end. A weird, impossible-to-decipher voice suddenly rips through the night air. Isaiah jerks his head away from his friends and demands to know if they can hear anything. A voice with no body booms only inside Isaiah's head, and it leaves them completely bewildered. A blinding light suddenly erupts around them, and before they can even react, it engulfs them completely. A shadowy hooded figure grins as a magical chant crashes through the air. With a blinding flash, all three get yanked through the air. Now they're just pale, ghost-like silhouettes floating where they were. They suddenly find themselves dumped in a dead, unfamiliar wasteland, completely lost and with nowhere to go. Their faces don't just show shock, they scream disbelief, like reality just shattered in front of them. Three friends huddle side by side and stare out at the wild, brand new world like it's daring them to survive it. The dream crashes into reality, and in the present, a warrior screams Roy's name like his life depends on it. Aileen whips out her spell, *** prison of illusions ***, and unleashes a fatal nightmare that traps the mind. She cackles, swearing that the second he collapses and loses consciousness, she'll rip back control of the whole world. His friends realize the truth. He's not bleeding, but he's burning out, and exhaustion is going to kill him. Glenn clenched his fist and swore they had no choice but to slice through the vines. Aileen yanks a grotesque, nightmare monster straight out of her own mind, planting it in their path to stop them cold. She cuts them off cold and vows, straight-faced, that if anyone interferes, they'll all die right there. The Crimson Lions plant themselves like a wall, daring her to underestimate their strength. Glenn finally admits it. He's never laid eyes on a monster like this before. Fleur blurts out her fear. What if she's facing a foe with weaknesses no one can predict? Glenn's resolve is ironclad. He's coming for its weak points, and he'll rip them open in a fight. He throws out a desperate shout, begging the trapped Roy to hang on no matter what. Elena's so sure she can take them all down. She just needs to carve out enough time and buys it with sheer control. She stands over the trapped Roy, her vicious spell tightening its grip as it finally takes hold. She leans in with sharp fascination, locked onto the dark past unfolding in his nightmares. Her magic flares and proves it. He's from another world, and right away his friends pounce with the big question, where are they? In a blazing flash of memory, a young guy named Isaiah shouts to his friends. The camera zooms in on his eye wide, stunned, like the truth just hit him. Kite and Luna can't shake this weird sense that their brand new surroundings feel strangely familiar, like they've been here before. Isaiah stares on in stunned disbelief, wondering if the nightmare in front of them is even real. A monstrous worm bursts out of the barren ground, its gaping mouth packed with razor-sharp spikes. Pure terror rips through the young man's eyes as the beast crashes into view. Kite slams a K out of harm's way the instant the creature lunges to bite. A thunderous punch slams into the monster's massive head, shaking the air with a brutal thud. Right there, Luna flashes a proud grin and announces that she actually managed to land the hit on the creature. Kite shoots off his gratitude, but he's honest too, because even her adrenaline-fueled strength has its limits. Rage surges through the worm as it jerks back upright, its terrifying maw gapes open, primed to strike again. For the second time, Kite lunges and shoves his friend out of harm's way just as danger closes in. Luna shrieks her brother's name, and pure terror rips across her face like it can't be contained. A furious wall of fire suddenly crashes down, swallowing the monstrous worm in a roaring, hellish blaze. Kite slumped on the ground, stunned and frozen in doubt, staring at the fire like, how the hell did I even make this? He and Luna felt it at the same time. Our bodies just took over, and an untamed power burst loose like it had been waiting to explode. Isaiah snaps his head around, and a strange voice hits him, speaking in a language he can't understand. A memory flashes. An old robber stands before a carriage, whispering like he's conjuring secrets in mystical ruins. The three friends stare in total shock at the man's cryptic prophecy about heroes. Isaiah fires a question to his friends, but they're just as clueless as him. Every single one of them is lost. They got marched into a grand church, those towering spires clawing up toward the sky like they were daring the heavens. Inside, they discovered the shocking truth. This wasn't their world at all, but Grimoire, a place they'd been summoned to by prophecy. Kite slams his fist into the door, seething with rage because he's stuck carrying the hero title like a curse. He and Luna sink into heartbreaking regret, knowing they're about to miss the big competitions that matter most back in their world. Isaiah asks what happens if they say no, and right then, they find out they'll be thrown away and left behind. The three of them sink into crushing gloom, shaking with fear because they have no idea how they're even going to survive in this brutal world. Kite's face tightens the moment he realizes their choices are razor-thin. He tells them to grab the hero role just to stay alive, then push onward to find a way back home. Luna nods thoughtfully, then drops the idea that beating the demon lord is probably the only ticket to get home. Isaiah blurts out his insecurity, stuck there with nothing he can do, and he can't even understand the local language. His friends swoop in right away, shooting him reassurance and promising they'll teach him and guard him through anything. They decided to turn their dire mess into a game, because if they won, they'd get to go home. Isaiah can't stop thinking about how Luna fights like she was born with a blade, and how Kite's magic hits like pure power. Instead, he felt completely useless. He couldn't land a single finishing blow on any monster. He started to believe the whole thing was a total mix-up, like he'd been dragged in by accident, a heavy burden hanging over the two true heroes. After months of struggle, they finally stumble into a city near the capital and crack the language at last. A tiny, bright-eyed girl beams and points right at them, shouting with pure joy about the jet-black heroes. Her mother breaks it down right then, saying the thrill is real, because their jet-black hair is an unbelievable rarity in that place. The little girl beams and waves a joyful goodbye, and Isaiah grins, then waves back like nothing can stop the happiness. They huddle over their battle map, locking in the perfect spot to spy, track, and steal intel. Isaiah remembers how he heard a royal magician in the capital actually knows the hero legend. Luna's face brightens with fierce hope, because this magician might finally show them the way home. A blood-curdling screech rips through the air, and with a blinding explosion, demonic winged creatures crash onto the scene. Isaiah's face snaps into alarm, and real worry floods his expression. Kite's expression turns stone cold, and he instantly braces himself like the next second is a fight. Luna's eyes suddenly sharpen to a razor point as the monstrous threat crashes down on them. Kite snaps at Isaiah to hustle the townspeople to safety while they tear into the fight. Luna turns into pure lightning, her blade slicing through the attacking monsters like a storm. Isaiah fires back commands at the panicking crowd, shoving them toward the church like it's the only safe place left. Kite hurls his magic forward, and in one brutal blast, wipes out multiple winged beasts at once. In the middle of the chaos, Isaiah catches a tiny scream, some little girl crying for her mother. He spots that same little girl, now miles from where she was lost, crying, and alone on the street. Isaiah rockets across the ground and slides in, snatching the girl up into his arms. He snaps at the girl's mom to back off, because now a brand new, far bigger threat is coming for him. A dragon-like monster rockets forward with jaws blazing open, ready to bite down on them. Istia whips around to face the beast, resolve blazing in his chest as he commits to crushing it. He rockets forward and springs onto the creature's towering, scaled body like he's taking the fight straight to its skin. A brutal beast barrels in and shoves him to one knee, yet he digs in and refuses to break. Teeth clenched hard, he tightens his grip on the sword. No more delays, he's finishing it right now. He rockets skyward and thrusts his sword up high for one last, crushing blow. His face hardens into pure determination as he charges down on the monster. The little girl clung to his arm with white-knuckled fear, staring ahead in pure terror. In a terrifying twist, the girl is skewered straight onto the monster's razor-sharp teeth. A sharp burst of dark blood sprays through the air, sealing a moment of pure, unbearable tragedy. The girl's tiny stuffed animal slips from her hands and thumps lifeless onto the dusty ground. Isaiah's eyes went huge with shock, and the absolute horror of what he was seeing slammed into him like a wall. Later, the townspeople tell the story with shaking voices. His failure, their worst nightmare, because a child died because of him. They rip into him, screaming he's a worthless parasite leeching off the real heroes. A sobbing mother closes in and swings with everything, cracking Isaiah hard across the face. She screams at him through tears and fury, demanding to know why he didn't save her child. Kite's fist starts to burn with magical light as fury keeps rising inside him. He's livid, demanding to know how anyone could complain after getting saved from that attack. He roars at the top of his lungs that it was them, the ones who stood up and defended the whole town. Luna kneels beside the shattered Isaiah, her voice soft as she admits the kind of pain that breaks a person. Isaiah's face wears grief like a dark mask, and he can't even find the words to speak or respond. She hits him with the truth he began with nothing, and then tells him, loud and clear, that what he's doing is already more than enough. Kite's frustration flares into cold rage. He shrugs off the girl's death like it's just another disposable NPC. Luna begs Kite to stop lashing out with cruel, cold words. Isaiah's voice shook as he swore up and down this wasn't some game, because the brutal reality was already haunting him. He declares with sharp, undeniable certainty that this world is brutally real, and it terrifies him. Kite's face twisted in rage, as Isaiah's emotional challenge shattered the very worldview he lived by. Isaiah's fist crashes into Kite's jaw in a split second of pure, righteous fury. Luna lunges in to break it up as Kite staggers backward from that brutal, earth-shaking hit. Kite yells back, insisting magic can only mean one thing: this world has to be a game. His brave act collapses, and suddenly his despair and terrifying fear spill out for everyone to see. Isaiah remembers how Kite tried to sell their whole mess like it was just some simple RPG. He snaps with guilt, realizing his friends were drowning too, choked by brutal pressure the whole time. A sinister voice, ripped from the shadows, laughs at the hero's naivete for daring to defy it. Tears carve a path down Luna's face, and in an instant, the bright hope that once lived in her is totally shattered. Kite's mask finally breaks too, his cold cynicism shatters, and tears rip out of him. Isaiah's bruised face is streaked with tears, and now he stands with his friends, together in pure, shared terror. Vice, the demon lord, unveils his massive, armored titan form before the three heroes. Isaiah admits it, he's still totally blank on what happened right after that. A brutal, stark snapshot slams into view, Kite's bruised, blood-soaked face, staring lifeless in death. Another image flashes, Luna's eyes gone dull, lifeless, and soaked in blood. In the pounding rain, Isaiah's heart shatters as he realizes, too late, he's completely alone. Right now, a sorceress stares in disbelief at the wild vision unfolding before her eyes. She realizes her captive's memories just blinked out for a split second, gone without warning. She suspects his mind is slamming the door on something too horrifying to face, like the memory won't let itself be touched. Roy got pinned tight in vicious vines, jaw clenched, and he hissed the demon lord's name through gritted teeth, Vice. A hooded sorceress stares at the alarm as her vine-wrapped prison starts to shake, then it erupts with shocking, unexpected power. Inside the cocoon, the captive's eyes blaze with a white-hot glow, roaring with raw, unstoppable rage. The sorceress reels in pure shock, because she truly thought her prisoner was knocked out and totally under her control. Now that he's finally free, a black aura swallows him whole, and his overwhelming power erupts into a full-on rampage.